Suddenly, a bright bolt of lightning strikes nearby, stunning everyone standing nearby. Regis frowns slightly and immediately gives the order to begin the planned execution. Then the sharp blade of the gallows instantly cuts off the head of the condemned girl. Nayla knew full well that she would never be able to take her eyes off what was happening. It was the last time she looked at her enemies, who had led her to her death. The girl peels herself away from the phone screen and stretches, realizing that she has finally managed to close all the endings. It exhausted her greatly, but she was incredibly pleased and proud of herself. She just finished a game about the life of a heroine named Nayla. All 200 endings were completed, which was a great achievement, as the girl had never put so much effort into a game in her life. She was sure that she would have given up at the very beginning if it weren't for the main character. The best version of Nayla she created in the game became a ray of light for her. She took an example from the character when she saw how she did not give up, despite any difficulties. The story began with the heroine being adopted by Duke Rubelos after her noble family went bankrupt. The emperor promised the man that if he had a worthy daughter, he would marry her to the crown prince. The ruler always keeps his promises, so the duke was obliged to bring him his daughter, no matter what the cost. Rubelos already had a daughter, Claudia, but she was in poor health, so he could not marry her off. That's how he brought Nayla into their family. Even though she was only a substitute, the girl was happy with her role, as she and the prince fell in love with each other as if it was predetermined by fate itself. Several years later, Claudia, who was supposed to die, suddenly recovered. Perhaps because her recovery was difficult, the girl's character became simply terrible. The bullying of her adopted daughter became more and more cruel every day, and eventually everything turned out that Claudia removed her from her place and married the prince herself. In one moment, Nayla's dreams, her future, and even her loved one were taken away. Despite so many difficulties, the heroine endured it all steadfastly. The girl playing as the main character put in all her efforts and opened all the endings except one. The last one was the ending where Nayla still remains the empress. The girl wanted to fulfill the character's real dreams so much that she studied absolutely all the important moments of the game. In the end, she still managed to do it, despite the time it took. For some reason, despite the good ending, she still had a strange feeling. A picture appears before her eyes of Claudia begging her sister for forgiveness, already prepared for execution. Each time the game ended with the death of the Duke's own daughter. Even though she was an antagonist, sometimes you really felt sorry for her. The girl thinks that the last ending was the most cruel, because Claudia was killed by her own fiancé. Suddenly, a notification from the game arrives on her phone, offering to play a new part of the story. The girl decides that this ending is only revealed to players who have unlocked the other 200. In addition, this time the character the player plays as was Claudia. The game became much more interesting, because there was an opportunity to play as the antagonist. The girl had no reason not to start the game. Suddenly, a woman's scream is heard throughout the estate. The maid quickly runs up to her mistress and asks if everything is okay. Claudia turns to the woman who approached and says that she simply saw an insect. The maid announces that preparations for tea are complete and then leaves. Claudia waves, and finally he notes to himself that he still can't get used to it. When she was just a player, she calmly chose the profession of the character she was supposed to play for this time. The girl decided that the role of the spirit's counterparty would be the most suitable. A window appeared on the screen, informing her that she would need to awaken 5 spirits located in different parts of the state of Belkinus, and then make a contract with them. An important condition of this profession was that in case of defeat, she had to die. The girl decided to sort it all out the next day, so she went to bed. But in the morning, she woke up in Claudia's body. In all previous endings, the heroine died every time because of her own evilness. At this rate, the girl could die long before she found those spirits. That's why she decided to make Claudia good and restore her reputation. The girl sees 2 surprised people in front of her and asks how long they have been waiting for her. One of them was Luke, Claudia's older brother, who, according to the plot, hates her for her dark past. The girl had been trying to live like a good heroine for a month, but she didn't notice any changes. The second person waiting for her was Nayla, the only joy of the girl's movement here, as a player. Luke suddenly puts his hand in front of his half-sister and orders the newcomer to say what she has in mind. He says that he came only to find out what kind of prank she had come up with this time. The guy angrily says that he is not interested in such idiotic, in his opinion, tea parties. For a whole month, Claudia tried to wash away her reputation as a villain, but Luke's gaze did not change one bit and remained just as stern. She realized that the guy probably didn't even think about changing his attitude towards her. Claudia suddenly decides that her brother is definitely incorrigible, so she suddenly asks him to shut up and get out of here. She reminds him of how he said that this was a stupid tea party, and then tells him that if he doesn't want to stay, he can leave. The girl decides that if there is something that cannot be changed, then it is better not to impose herself and take a detour. Nayla suddenly admits that if her brother leaves, then she will too. Clavdia decides that she still feels uncomfortable with her, since memories of bullying are certainly not forgotten just like that. She says that if Neela wants it that way, she can have tea later. After this, she leaves, realizing that she has quite a long way to go. Nayla tries to calm the indignant guy and invites him to go for a walk. Luke apologizes for the fact that, despite being Claudia's brother, he was unable to raise her properly. The girl asks him not to apologize and adds that all the blame lies entirely with the one who left. Claudia slowly climbs the stairs, noticing that these two have ruined her whole mood. She suddenly hears the children talking, who were apparently talking about today's tea party. The girl gets very angry when she realizes that the dialogue is about her and approaches the speakers. The children immediately run away, screaming when they see her, even though she hasn't said a word. As a result, it turned out that after a whole month of efforts, Clavdia achieved nothing. She decides that she needs to examine her goals and adjust her plan. Initially, she planned to make friends with the people here, which turned out to be a complete failure. The girl understands that if she put in so much effort, but did not achieve results, then she will not be loved in the future, so she decides that it would be better to leave this house. The second point in her plan was to improve her relationship with Nayla, because it hurt her every time she avoided her. Claudia realizes that this will take a long time, but she knows that she cannot give up. The last point was a conversation with Prince Regis, which was risky, because he could kill her again, just like in that last ending. She decides that the first thing she should do is talk to him and get rid of the negativity towards her, and maybe he will even help her find the spirits. When she thought about it, she had no idea how impossible a goal she had set for herself. Despite all of Claudia's efforts, she could not meet Regis. She was very annoyed that the prince did not warn her if his plans changed and he could not come. Suddenly, a maid runs into the girl's room and says that they have received a message from Regis. The prince informed the girl that he would be free for some time and arranged for them to meet. The day of their meeting arrived, and Claudia sat steadfastly in place, awaiting the arrival of the prince. The maids nearby whisper that Regis is being too cruel to the girl because she has been waiting for him for more than an hour. The girl thinks that the prince apparently has some business to attend to, although none of the knights or maids know about it. It suddenly dawns on her that the guy is probably deliberately testing her patience. She decides that even though the prince did kill Claudia, he would not have done so if he were such a good prince. Claudia gets up from her seat, deciding that it's time to go. Otherwise, she'll be here for the rest of the day. The girl walks down the street sadly, realizing that this day, like all the others, has remained without any results. Suddenly, she sees a familiar silhouette nearby, and immediately heads there. It was Regis, sitting peacefully in a chair with a book in his hands. Claudia quickly runs up to him, catching the prince off guard due to her sudden appearance. She greets him politely, bowing slightly. The girl asks with some indignation whether he was here all this time. The guy says that before this he ate, walked, and drank tea, and now he sat down for a short while to read. Clavdia hesitantly reminds him that he made an appointment with her, and she had been waiting for him since the morning. Regis suddenly says that he is very disappointed that she did not figure it out herself. He explains that he was deliberately trying to get rid of her each time. Until the very end, the girl did not want to believe that the guy had simply been making fun of her all this time. She suddenly remembers a situation from her past life, where people made fun of her when she worked part-time in a catering establishment, and once told her that she needed to throw out all the products from the main office because they were expired. Everything that was thrown out turned out to be still fresh, and then the girl, not intending to put up with such an attitude towards herself any longer, threatened one of the workers. She said that if they touched her even once more, she would show them how she had lived all this time. If she had her way, she would have taught that blonde guy a lesson too. Regis, smiling, asks what she wanted from him all this time. She couldn't believe that the guy had actually been that kind of person all this time. The girl answered him politely, although it irritated her, but she could not be at odds with the prince. The guy is surprised by her behavior and asks again what exactly she wanted. Clavdia quickly tries to think of something so as not to leave this situation like that. She suddenly asks the prince to break off their engagement, smiling. Regis is very surprised, and she reminds him that he really wants this too. The girl says that it shouldn't be that difficult with his parents if he makes every effort to persuade his father. She was immensely pleased with her decision, because she knew that the character she had taken advantage of in this way was unlikely to try to hurt her. The prince suddenly notices that the girl's character seems to have completely changed. Claudia left the room contentedly, already having carefully planned her revenge for this insult. There are two princes in their state, and initially, Nathan was supposed to become the emperor, since he is the eldest. But he was cursed, which made him experience terrible suffering when he touched girls. He was quickly removed, because you definitely won't get any heirs from him. But judging from the endings that have been played, if this curse is lifted, the guy will once again become the first heir. The girl knew that if everything went as it should, Regis would lose his place and would almost cry with anger. In fact, this was only part of the advantages in this scenario. If she lifts this curse, she will receive a considerable reward in the form of the position of Empress. She slowly approaches Nathan and insistently asks him to marry her. Long ago, the emperor who founded the state stole someone's precious relic. After that, he managed to become the ruler of the entire continent. But unfortunately, everything always has a price. When Claudia tells the prince her request, silence hangs over them, and the guy's eyes widen in surprise. Even though Nathan was the first prince, his importance was not particularly important because he was a simple character. But despite this, he could become a good trump card for the girl's ideal revenge. The guy gets very tense and seriously asks what she means. She says she really wants to marry him. Nathan reminds her that she is his brother's fiancée, so he asks her to think about what she is saying at all. Claudia says that whoever she is, His Majesty will definitely listen to the one who is his pain. She apologizes for her words and says that she still insists on her own. The girl says that Regis not only doesn't love her, he hates her. She admits that she would prefer someone who does not despise her if she is destined to marry one of the two. Claudia admits that she would like a fake marriage, and he will not be obliged to fulfill his duties as a husband. Nathan suddenly grins and remarks that he hasn't had such an interesting conversation in a long time. He says he understands why she came to him, and then asks what he will get in return. The girl promises that if he fulfills her request, she will fulfill his deepest desire. Claudia promises that she will free him from the curse. The guy's face suddenly changes, and he sternly orders her to leave. He asks if she knows how terrible a sin it is to insult members of the royal family. The girl says that this is not a lie, and she can really help him. Nathan says that hundreds of people just like her have come to him. His mother spared no expense in trusting all the scammers, but they all eventually betrayed them. He says that due to strong emotions, the woman became ill and soon died. Claudia suddenly claims that in that case, he should believe her even more. She says that if the guy misses this chance, he will have to spend his whole life alone. The girl says that the deceased empress probably only wanted to prevent this. Nathan suddenly tells her that she better not run into him again, and this time he will forgive her. She was sure that she knew everything about the game, but in the end, it was very different from the girl's ideas. This was especially true in terms of the characters' personalities, although her role as a villain could still play a role. The guy was just a regular extra character, so Claudia didn't know any details about him, but now she could at least help somehow. She knew how to break the curse because she tried so hard to unlock different endings. She had no choice but to learn hundreds of recipes for different potions, as completely different quests appeared. She had tried hard then, but now she could apply her knowledge. The potion she had prepared would definitely help, but it could be dangerous to drink unprepared, so it was advisable to develop immunity through physical action, and then take it internally. The maid reports to the girl that Nathan has gone on a mission against monsters in the Anesis forest, so he will return only closer to the evening. At the same time, in the forest itself, knights were running around the clearing, trying to find the prince. Suddenly, a huge mandrake appeared in front of them, and someone started shouting that everyone needed to put on armor immediately. Suddenly, Nathan appeared out of nowhere and cut the monster into two pieces. One of the knights notes with concern that he has been splashed with mandrake slime, but the prince assures him that everything is fine. When asked again about his health, Nathan angrily asks the guy not to make him repeat himself. Some time passes, and they all return back to the palace. Claudia, who had almost fallen asleep due to the long wait, rejoices at the prince's return. The servant informs Nathan that a bath will be prepared for him soon. The prince is about to leave, when suddenly the guy says that there is something else. He suddenly adds that Lady Rebellos is waiting for him all day in the audience hall. Nathan recalls that he let her go despite her inappropriate behavior. The servant asks what he should do, and the prince says that she does not even deserve his answer. A maid approaches Claudia, and the girl asks why she came so late. The one who just arrived suddenly reports that the prince asked her to convey that he does not want to meet with her. Claudia suddenly realizes that everything is much worse than she imagined. She decides that, in that case, she will have to go to him herself, because it was obvious that if she made an appointment, he would not come. Nathan, sitting in the bathtub, nervously bites his tender lip. He deeply regretted that it was the mandrake slime that got on him. The girl decides that she needs to check the plan again before starting active activities. According to the plan, she was supposed to sneak into the first prince's room, give him a potion to cure the curse, and then enter into an arranged marriage with him. She suddenly noticed that the character Clavdia, as it turned out, was also quite difficult to play. When she played as Nayla, there was an easy ending, but she really didn't like it. Among all this, there was an ending for the maid, where she had to deliver love letters to the knights or take the ledger with bribes. Carrying out orders from high-ranking officials, she eventually studied the entire structure of the castle. The girl never thought that she would use her knowledge of endings for professions that she didn't want to go through. She climbed through the dog hole to get into the first prince's bedroom. Clavdia planned to appear in such a way as not to frighten him, when suddenly she came across a male figure. Nathan asks, confused, how she even managed to get here. She greets the prince, slowly rising. The girl declares that she has come to prove that she can remove his curse. She immediately takes out the potion and drinks it, which leaves the guy stunned. Nathan angrily asks her to stop fooling around and leave his room. Claudia suddenly rips off her cloak and asks the prince to touch her to make sure she is not lying. The guy immediately jumps to the side, very embarrassed. He asks if she remembers that he gets sick from contact with girls. She quickly approaches him, intending to demonstrate the power of the potion she has made, until Nathan orders her to stop on behalf of the prince. Claudia begins to beg him to touch her just a little. The guy covers his face with his hand and claims that he can't do it. She asks if he is feeling well, because she sees the prince blushing. The girl slowly touches his forehead, trying to find out if he has a fever. She suddenly notices how handsome Nathan really is. After this, she moves away, noting that he has no temperature, which raises even more questions. Clavdia asks the guy to pay attention to the fact that after her touches, nothing bad happened to him. The prince gently touches her face first, and then her shoulder, not at all believing that this is possible. She looks at him questioningly, not expecting him to be so tactile towards her, and the guy gets scared. He covers his face with his hand and apologizes for it, sighing. Nathan explains that he was exposed to mandrake slime during the day and asks her to come home today. The girl knew very well that the mucus contained a component that turned people on. Despite this, for some reason, she wanted to make fun of him when she saw such a rude person being embarrassed. She grabs him by the shoulders and asks worriedly if everything is okay and if there is anything she can do to help him. The prince admits that from now on, she can help him in many ways. After that, he kisses her, and everything unfolds quite unexpectedly and strangely. When Claudia wakes up, she immediately remembers how the prince hung over her that night, breathing heavily. She understands that it is entirely her fault. Her mistake was that she touched the guy knowing about the effect of the mandrake mucus. The girl couldn't digest what she had done to this completely unknown person while she was absorbed in revealing the ending. Nathan suddenly walks into the room, amazed that she woke up so early. She is surprised that he does not cover his face with scarves today, after which she says that it is much better this way. The guy looks away and asks if she got enough sleep. Clavdia asks him not to be polite and suggests talking about what they didn't have time to discuss yesterday. She places the contract in front of him, reminding him that they had already established that she was not lying about lifting the curse. Nathan reminds her that she could have become empress if she had married Regis, even though there was no love in their relationship. The girl planned this when she married her interlocutor, but she couldn't say it because it would sound like exploitation. He suddenly announces that he doesn't care, because he will become the heir anyway if he gets rid of the curse. The boy explains that if he can create heirs, then the reason why he could not become emperor will disappear. He says he is only going to take back the place that was originally intended for him, and Claudia realizes that he is much more ambitious than she thought. She adds that their wedding is turning out to be quite mutually beneficial. The girl promises that she will make every effort to help him ascend to the throne. She suddenly wonders if last night was a mutual mistake. Clavdia says that she will try to forget about what happened, because such personal matters will only hinder their goals. Nathan looks up after finishing signing the paper and is silent for a moment. He says it just happened, so they shouldn't bring it up at all. The girl suggests starting with His Majesty's permission, and he insists on starting right now. The guy explains his zeal by saying that they shouldn't hesitate. Clavdia notes that he is used to solving problems immediately, which she liked incredibly. On his way to the emperor, Nathan explains that his father is not in the best condition now, so he can only worry about the dissolution of that marriage. The girl suggests that she should first put maximum pressure on Mercy and obtain permission for the wedding. They plan to talk about the curse and the place of the emperor after the wedding. The emperor asks his son with interest what news he has. If, as he said, even Regis should hear it. Nathan suddenly falls to his knees, which greatly surprises a girl nearby. He apologizes to both his father and his brother. The guy says that he wants to spend his whole life with Claudia, so he came to them to get permission for their relationship. The emperor angrily asks how he managed to set his sights on his younger brother's bride. Nathan says he thought he would spend his whole life alone, but she changed his mind when she showed up. He says that Claudia is the only person who, despite the curse, is ready to spend eternity with him, so he does not want to let her go. The girl notes that her new acquaintance turned out to be a good actor, so she couldn't have made a mistake here either. She suddenly says that they love each other to death, after which she asks for the go-ahead for their relationship. Claudia says that she thought for a long time and realized that her feelings for the guy were sincere, so she was sure that together they could overcome all adversity. She says that she doesn't care about any curses, because they can cope if their love exists. Nathan notes that this is the first and last love of his life, so he asks for permission again. Suddenly, Regis interrupts them, ordering them to stop talking nonsense. He aggressively asks how they can shame him so openly. Claudia says that only the two of them are to blame, and he shouldn't worry about his authority. She reminds him that Regis doesn't really love her, but her sister, when he suddenly tells her to shut up. The emperor suddenly apologizes to his youngest son, and remarks that he can find anyone he wants if he wants, unlike his brother. The man says that he gives his consent if their feelings are truly true. Claudia exchanges glances with the guy standing next to her and smiles, realizing that everything is going according to plan. Sometime later, sitting in the garden, the girl notes that she did not expect him to start with such a provocation, and Nathan reminds them that they played quite well. She sarcastically says that she needed to respond to her future husband's efforts. The guy suddenly remembers that night, while the words that he will become her husband are repeated over and over in his head. Claudia suddenly asks if they should move on to the second case, since they successfully dealt with the first. She says that she needs to talk to her father too, although this shouldn't be a problem since the emperor has already given his consent. Nathan remarks that he is surprised by the speed of development of the actions, and the girl says that she is more comfortable solving boring tasks faster. He suddenly remembers how she told him this morning that that night could only hinder their goals, and then becomes slightly irritated. The guy wonders if he has to go, since the Duke will most likely allow it anyway. Claudia jumps up and happily notes that she can handle this alone. She says that she should go, and then reminds him that they will meet again soon. Duke Rubelos is the father of Claudia and Nila, and a great military leader who led the state to victory in the war 17 years ago with the Duchy of Espiar. The girl had already heard many times that he was the strongest in this world, but he left before she entered Claudia's body, so they never met. Surprisingly, the next day after her trip to the palace, he unexpectedly returned. She doubts for a moment that she will actually be able to persuade him. When Claudia sees her father, she notices that his true appearance is fierce and befits the strongest man in the world. She notices him approaching and reminds him that violence is not the answer. Suddenly, the man hugs her and tells her how much he missed her. He wonders why she went to the palace for a few days. Claudia notes that her father is completely different from what she imagined, although this was not surprising, considering that this was the case with other characters in the game. She admits that she was at her fiancé's, but mentions Nathan, not Regis. The girl says she wants to break off her engagement to the crown prince and marry his brother. She reminds her father that Regis doesn't love her, and she doesn't want to spend her whole life unhappy with such a man. Suddenly, the Duke indignantly asks if Nathan is a heretic, and she replies that it is just a curse, which does not convince her father at all. She says that this cannot be avoided in any case, because they have already told everything to the emperor and received the go-ahead. The man asks how much she doesn't value him, since she didn't even consult him. Suddenly, the Duke orders those standing outside to lock up his daughter for her insolence. The guy asks Nathan not to overexert himself, because this was already the 20th fight in a row. He says that there are no knights left who would like to train with him. The prince asks him to become his new opponent, but he refuses. Suddenly, Regis approaches them and says that he is ready to become his rival. He takes the sword in his hands, his face changing dramatically and preparing for a tough fight. Nathan reminds him that he doesn't even know how to hold a sword. The younger one furiously tells his brother not to underestimate him. He swings his arm, preparing to strike the person standing next to him, when suddenly he falls. Nathan points out that if he continues like this, he'll just be wasting his time. Suddenly, Regis is outraged that, no matter how much they hated him, it was wrong to treat him this way. He says they must have known the position they were putting him in. Besides this, the guy was sure that now Claudia would make fun of him. Nathan says he has no idea what she's talking about, then mentions that his brother didn't even care about her feelings. He notes that Claudia would definitely not like to marry someone who holds another girl in his heart. Regis suddenly reveals that the guy cares about her feelings more than about the feelings of his own brother. The elder asks if he has a reason to choose him, if, according to the second, he hates his brother. Suddenly, Regis admits that he was right, and he really didn't love her. He wonders if it is any different if he sent Claudia alone to her father. The guy says that on the battlefield, the Duke was called a murderer, and the girl went to him to tell him that she was getting a divorce without his knowledge, and was also marrying the older brother of her former fiancé. He says with confidence that the girl was probably locked up somewhere in a dungeon. Claudia was sure that the Duke would not lock her up, as he loved his daughter very much. She looks around her room and realizes that in such a place, she won't even be able to come to her senses. Suddenly, Luke and Nayla enter her room, asking from the doorway about her broken engagement with Regis. The guy asks if this is also one of her plans to win his favor. The girl reports that the Emperor has already given her permission not to marry her youngest son. She says she will marry the first prince, Nathan. Suddenly, Nayla wonders if this is all true. Claudia is very happy because she finally has a chance to improve her relationship with her half-sister. She says that she wasn't interested in Regis from the beginning, so she wholeheartedly supports their feelings. Nayla rushes to her sister and hugs her tightly, thanking her for what she did. Suddenly, her face changes dramatically, and she asks what she is planning. The Duke eats excitedly, not understanding how his daughter could make such an important decision without consulting him. He only had to think about her marriage, and tears came to his eyes. Suddenly, Nathan appears in front of him, saying that he has come to visit his fiancée. Claudia enters the room, greeting her future husband. She didn't expect the guy to come here in person, so she assumes he was worried about her. Nathan suddenly touches her face and notices how swollen it is, so he asks if he hit her. The girl admits that it is because of the sweets, which surprises the guy very much. She suddenly mentions that he should stop hiding his face from the people, because the heir to the throne must boldly and proudly appear before his subjects. Claudia's face changes, and she says that they have another problem. She says that her father absolutely refuses to marry her off. The girl reports that the Duke is sure that the guy suffers from impotence. She suddenly decides to change the wording and says that he is simply worried about the guy's curse. Claudia gets up from her seat and reminds that she has already managed to find a solution to the problem. After this, she drinks the same potion she made herself again. She says that now they will be able to prove to others that the rumors about the prince are just lies. The Duke seriously wonders why Nathan came to his house if he had previously so diligently avoided him. The girl explains that the prince wants to clarify something. They had previously agreed between each other that she would give a sign that would mean that they could touch each other. She nods her head imperceptibly and asks her father to watch as carefully as possible. Nathan takes her hand and asks the Duke to notice that his arms are bare. The man asks with displeasure if they really think they can outsmart him. Claudia asks the person standing next to her to turn around, because this is starting to get really annoying. She kisses him herself, knowing that they need more convincing arguments, because only then will they make her father believe. The Duke suddenly shouts for them to stop immediately, embarrassed. The girl tells him that her touch is absolutely painless for the prince, but he notes that this is not a reason to behave in this way. The man suddenly remarks that if she calmly accepts her current situation, she will soon become an empress. Claudia wonders if there is a more sophisticated way to ruin your life than marrying a man you don't love. Suddenly, Nathan asks how the man even dares to talk about something like that in his presence. He declares that he intends to reclaim the throne taken by Regis. The guy says that he will be able to produce an heir, which will help resolve the issue of his rule, which is why the problem the man spoke about did not arise. The Duke mentally notes that he is not afraid to express his opinion, even in front of a man whom people have dubbed a murderer. He suddenly realizes that this man is quite suitable for his daughter, even though he saw him for the first time. The man suddenly wonders if it could be that his daughter is only attracted to a guy because he has a pretty face. He couldn't believe that Claudia could be obsessed with his beauty. The Duke understands that Nathan's words are not without logic, but it will be quite difficult to overthrow Regis, who has already strengthened his position quite well. He says that he can only accept it, since his daughter chose him. The man asks his interlocutor to prove that his intention to clear his reputation as a prince is not an empty promise. He promises that he will give his permission if Nathan does a better job of hunting monsters than he does. This test was too harsh, because the boy's opponent was a murderer from the Belcanus Empire. The hunt began that evening, because the Duke had no intention of delaying. The man reminds his daughter that he barely gave in to her persuasion and allowed her to watch the hunt despite how dangerous it was. He points her to a small tent and tells her that there is magical protection inside, so she should not leave under any circumstances. The hunt was given 5 hours, And at the end, they had to compare the number of monsters they had killed. Claudia was really very interested in how it would all end. Nathan killed everyone in his path without mercy, wanting to make the Duke pay for his arrogance. The man did not loosen his grip, and did not even intend to lose, not wanting to simply give up his daughter. Meanwhile, the girl was already starting to get tired of waiting for so long without hearing any news. She was in such a hurry that she didn't even have time to eat properly, so she did it in the shelter. Another problem was that her bag was left outside. Clavdia understood well that the barrier erected by her father only protected the tent. She thinks that she could just run out and quickly pick her up, since the distance she would have to cover was very short. Riding alongside the Duke, Nathan admits that he was so focused on the hunt that he completely forgot about the time. He says that he is worried that Clavdia is left all alone in the shelter. The guy assumes that it will be difficult for her to sit still, but the man claims that his daughter is a fairly obedient girl. At that very moment, a girl standing with her handbag comes into their field of vision. The Duke immediately asks angrily what she is doing here anyway. He reminds her that he told her how dangerous it was outside, and she explains that she just went out to get her bag. The man begins to scold his daughter, telling her about the terrible monsters that live here. Suddenly, the prince notices a gargoyle heading rapidly towards them. He immediately jumps on Claudia, covering her with his back from the monster's claws. The gargoyle leaves 2 huge wounds on Nathan's back before quickly flying away. The Duke immediately rushes to them, worriedly inquiring about the prince's well-being. The first thing the guy says is to ask if Claudia is okay. He explains to the bewildered girl that they were attacked by a monster, and she might have just been kidnapped. After a while, she carefully stirs the ointment, warning the guy about the upcoming slight pain. Claudia applies the mixture to his back, and the prince immediately begins to scream in pain. She reproaches him for sacrificing himself so recklessly, and Nathan is surprised by how she thanks the man who saved her life. Suddenly, the Duke enters the room and declares his desire to talk to the guy. The prince inquires about the topic of conversation, intrigued that the man even sent his daughter away. Suddenly, the Duke declares that he approves of their marriage. He admits that he was stunned when he saw how quickly, and without the slightest hesitation, the guy saved Clavdia from trouble. The Duke makes a verdict that the prince's feelings for her are pure and sincere. He also adds that an alliance should be made not with the one you love, but with the one who loves you, and Clavdia is well aware of this. Nathan asks in surprise who the girl loves then, and Rubellos confidently names Regis. The man decides that he doesn't know his daughter's past because of his frequent trips and constant busyness. He says that Claudia sent Regis long letters several times a day, and also constantly came and sang him love serenades. Rubellos reports that she was previously interested in the second prince, who, in turn, did not even pay attention to her. A few days later, the future spouses began preparing to leave the Duke's estate. Claudia happily says that it's time for them to start preparing for the wedding or engagement. She notes that preparing for a wedding is a rather slow process. The girl turns to Nathan and suddenly notices how indifferent and cold he looks. She gently reaches out to him, intending to touch his shoulder, and asks if everything is okay. The prince removes her hand and reminds her that there is a contract between them and nothing more, so she should keep a reasonable distance. He asks her to try to avoid unconsensual physical contact. Luke, who has been watching the departure all this time through the window, cannot believe that Claudia is really going to marry the first prince. Nayla notes that she wants to believe that this time her sister is not hiding anything and that everything is different now. The guy slowly approaches her and tells her not to deceive herself, asking her to remember all her misdeeds. She asks her brother not to say that, because he always looks for a catch in everything. Luke says that they need to figure out her plan anyway and prepare for the consequences. Nayla mentally asks angrily what kind of stupid ideas are coming out of his mouth. Sometime later, sitting in her room, she reflects on how Clavdia has become completely different. Previously, the girl managed to calculate every move of her sister and predict all her actions. Suddenly, Claudia changed her attitude towards those around her, and for some reason refused Prince Regis. Nayla had no idea how this happened or for what purpose. She didn't have a single idea of what she should do now. The girl decides that she shouldn't worry too much because it doesn't matter at all what her sister does. She's going to just get rid of Claudia if she ever becomes a nuisance. Nayla mentally asks her sister if she is right in thinking that this is exactly the fate that awaits them. A guy with blonde hair walks out onto the balcony and gazes at the dark sky. After a short silence, he suddenly remarks out loud that the time has come. When asked about the health of His Majesty, they report that the man has been feeling great lately. Claudia, through the butler, conveys a gift to His Majesty from her father, the Duke. Nathan tells the man across from him that they would like to have a small engagement party before the wedding. He explains this by the fact that many still believe that Regis and Claudia are about to get married, which the guy wanted to disprove as soon as possible. The girl comes out in a beautiful dress and asks the prince what he thinks about her image. He asks disinterestedly if it is too luxurious, and Claudia agrees with him, also noting that, in addition, her chest was a bit tight. She goes off to try on something else, while Nathan thinks about how she has no shyness. The prince steps aside because he feels very stuffy. He suddenly hears a conversation between two women, one of whom says that Claudia came accompanied by the first prince. She notes that the girl had previously wanted to have an heir, which was apparently only a temporary hobby, because now she needs Nathan. The second says that he is still a prince, despite the curse, after which she says that the brothers are not at all alike. She says that if Prince Regis is the light, then Prince Nathan is the darkness. The two women agree that the brothers are completely different. Suddenly, an irritated girl walks past Nathan, heading towards the gossip girls. Claudia greets one of the women, identifying her as Madame Felicia, who is having an affair with Lord Chase. The woman, stunned, asks how she found out. She covers her mouth with her hands when she suddenly realizes that she has raised quite a few questions from her interlocutor. The girl also greets the second one, addressing her as Madame Davy. Claudia notes that she heard somewhere that a woman paid a considerable sum at the Temple of Kavala to curse Lady Edeline. The girl says that her plan will definitely not work, because the one she wants to bring misfortune to drinks a potion every night that protects against curses, after which Madame Davy also covers her mouth with her hands. The two women then leave, deeply irritated that their bad side has been exposed. Claudia asks how one can be so insensitive, and why one can't treat someone who is under a curse a little more humanely. She tells Nathan that he is not to blame for his troubles, and that is why it is simply unacceptable to say such things about him. The girl also adds that the only bright thing about Regis is his hair and eyes. The prince is very surprised when he hears these words from his future wife. He awkwardly looks away and indignantly asks why she thinks so. Nathan asks what she didn't like about Regis, if she was once so attracted to him. He wonders if the reason is that the guy rejected her and ignored her feelings. The prince says that in that case, her hostility is understandable, because the stronger the love, the more terrible the hatred. Suddenly, Claudia screams angrily that she can't believe her ears. She says she has no idea what he was told, but she swears she never had any feelings for Regis. Nathan, confused, asks her to stop lying to him. The girl understands that it will be simply impossible to explain that she came from another world. She says that she seriously hit her head a month ago and now suffers from memory loss, so she barely remembers Regis. Claudia assures him that the past and present her are completely different people, and the second prince chose her as an object of ridicule. The guy sighs and remarks that she seems to want to forget about her past, confirming her suspicions that he will misunderstand everything. She asks him to leave here quickly, promising to tell him all the details a little later. Finally, she screams that who she was before and who she is now are completely different people. Those present quietly whisper to each other that Claudia looks very tired. They assumed that it was because she was very nervous about her upcoming engagement. Last night, she had a dream in which Nayla was. Claudia was the empress, and her sister yelled at her for it, claiming her place originally. It was strange, because Nayla had said that she was interested in Regis, not in a higher status. In the game, the girl always considered love to be much more important than any kind of power. Claudia recalls how her character, when she was just a player, successfully carried out the plan to become empress for the sake of her lover. Nathan looks questioningly at the woman standing next to him and offers to go to the place where the banquet is taking place. So far, everything was going according to plan, because the girl broke off her engagement with Regis without any problems and even got engaged to his brother. This was not enough to calmly find all the spirits hidden in the country. She needed to be more than just a princess, so she was going to make the first prince the heir to the throne. To find the spirits, she decided to take advantage of her position as crown princess, and in the future, empress. This was the fastest and most obvious option that could be thought of. She felt a little anxious as she began to wonder if she would really succeed. Claudia decides to think positively and think that she will succeed, because she has passed all the endings of this game. She realizes that she needs to stop thinking about her own things, because she needs to focus on what is happening right now. The Emperor tells Regis that he is very glad that his brother has found such a wonderful match. The guy suddenly announces that he is announcing his engagement to Lady Nayla. He says that the girl has a gentle character and an impeccable reputation, which makes her ideal for the role of empress. The man aggressively asks what people will think when his son, after breaking up with Claudia, suddenly switches to her sister, to which he replies that public opinion is not a law for him, since he will soon become emperor. His Majesty brings up the subject of his eldest son's opinion, and Nathan suddenly says that he doesn't care. He explains that he meant precisely the words about his imminent becoming emperor. The boy says he wants to confess something to his brother, even though his words may make him feel uncomfortable. He announces that he wants to take the status of heir to the throne for himself. Regis jumps up from his seat and angrily asks what kind of nonsense his brother is talking about. He asks if he has forgotten about his curse that has been limiting him all this time. Nathan calmly asks how he could forget about what ruined his whole life. After this, he slowly extends his hand to the girl sitting next to him, expecting help and support. Claudia smiles and places her hand in his, noting how much she loves dramatic turns. The emperor and his second son are shocked, not expecting such an outcome at all. Nathan explains that after meeting Claudia, his curse became weaker and weaker every day, and now he can take the throne. The man asks how this is even possible if the curse of the imperial family has never disappeared. Claudia reports that they consider this a blessing from heaven, as well as the support of the gods for their love. She, seeing the puzzled expression on Regis's face, asks if he is happy for his brother. The second prince says he is glad the curse is gone, but does not approve of him inheriting the throne. He says that he spent a long time learning to be a worthy ruler, while Nathan spent all his free hours hunting monsters. The elder suddenly becomes gloomy and angrily says that if it weren't for him, people would have died, so his occupation is definitely not a waste of time. He explains that he sacrificed himself for the sake of his future brother, did not learn fencing and the basics of preparing the heir to the throne, simply because he took on his responsibilities. The emperor interrupts their argument and asks them to stop with concern. He confirms Regis's words that he has been preparing to be the one to ascend the throne all this time, but adds that his brother is no worse, because he constantly risks his life for the empire. The man says that they are both worthy of being heirs to the throne. He clarifies that there cannot be two emperors, so it will be necessary to choose the one with more outstanding qualities. In addition, His Majesty reports that he received a message from their spy in the Duchy of Espiar, which speaks of suspicious activity. The Duchy of Espiar is a country that was defeated for attacking the empire before Claudia was born. The emperor explains that war may be just around the corner. He announces that he will pass the throne to the one who proves himself better. Claudia suddenly almost jumps up from her seat and says that his decision is indeed quite wise. She says that the situation played into their hands, because it will be easy to check who is more worthy of being the heir. The girl asks the princes if they all agree with His Majesty. When the conversation with the emperor ends, Nathan remarks out loud that she has become too excited. Claudia tries to calm him down and says that she already has a plan. She says that she will definitely need a ship, a crew, and an army. The girl happily announces that she will need to go to Charcote Island, where the Spirit of Water lives. The prince is very surprised, because there weren't even any resources on this island. She compliments his story, noting that this is a dangerous area, teeming with monsters. Claudia reminds that the Spirit of Water lives there, and the person who has made a contract with him can freely use his power. She says that this will be a good advantage in the war, after which she asks to prepare everything that she asked for earlier. The guy looks at her questioningly, still surprised by her desire to go there. For the girl, everything turned out more than wonderful, because now she could find the spirit and help Nathan. Suddenly, the prince asks how she knows all this. Claudia says that she once dreamed of becoming a geographer, so she read a bunch of different books, which technically wasn't a lie, since she had gone through that ending before. Nathan agrees, citing the fact that she has never lied before, and he saw no reason to lie. He notes that the spirits are quite dangerous, and it will be difficult, but she says that she is not as simple as she seems, so he should not worry. Claudia warns that she is going to ask her father's permission right now, since the guy agrees. A few days later, she arrived at the estate and began telling her father everything. The Duke says that since a trip to Charcote Island will help Nathan and the state in general, he should be given permission. Suddenly, his face changes, and he says that this is too dangerous a place to just let her go. He says that the prince is not enough, so there must be someone else nearby. The man confronts his son with the fact that he is going to the island with Claudia, because it is quite dangerous, and the trip could also help them become friends. Luke angrily says that he only has one sister, Nayla, and he definitely doesn't want to be friends with the second one, and he doesn't need her anyway. The Duke did not understand why the boy was behaving this way, if his mother had invested all of herself in him and his upbringing until her very death. The Duchess died in an accident during a period when Claudia was very ill. It was probably when the intermediary between Luke and his sister ceased to exist that their relationship degenerated into hatred. That same night, the boy reports to Neil about the planned trip to Charcote Island. He reports that there are still 3 weeks left to prepare the troops. Claudia walks tiredly around the estate, thinking that she feels as if she has a cold. The main thing for her now was the permission she had received, even though she thought she wouldn't be able to go because of Luke's refusal to go with her. The girl notices the strange behavior of the maids and thinks that the atmosphere in the palace has changed a lot. Nathan suddenly appears in front of her, immediately asking if she received permission. She answers in the affirmative and asks what happened to the atmosphere in the palace. The guy explains that it seems like an unpleasant rumor has spread about their relationship. As it turned out, while she was away, someone was gossiping in the estate. Claudia decides that she needs to be much more vigilant, because this place was literally a gossip factory. The prince says that rumors will surely reach his father soon, so they need a plan. The girl understood that she not only deserved gossip, but also the death penalty, since she had previously abandoned her younger brother and become engaged to the older one. She remains silent for a while, but suddenly says that she knows how to silence the gossip. Nathan hesitantly asks if he understood correctly that it was about a way to prove their love. The Belcanis Empire is a fairly free state, making their engagement quite possible. Just like Regis's engagement to Nayla, Claudia decides that spending nights together before marriage is a sign of love, and this is the only way to silence the gossip. The prince is very surprised because he thinks that she wants to repeat that very night. He understands that personal problems should not prevent him from achieving his goal. Nathan recalls their entire previous dialogue on this same topic, realizing that it is not that difficult to do. The guy decides that he shouldn't take it seriously because he's just helping. He sighs and says that he will go wash himself, and Claudia says that, in that case, she will go to bed. She leaves, warning him beforehand that she is giving up the bed to him. The prince only now realizes that they will simply sleep in the same room, and in different places. After a while, he opens his eyes, already lying on the bed, and realizes that he cannot sleep. The guy gets up, wanting to know if Claudia is sleeping. He approaches her, simultaneously thinking about what he could cover her with. Nathan suddenly notices how sick she is. He gently touches her forehead and notices how hot it is. The prince says that he will step aside to call someone, but is suddenly refused, because then their plan will fail. He angrily asks what the plan is if she has a fever, and should at least take some medicine. The girl reports that the fever usually doesn't last long, so it will start to subside very soon. Nathan frowns, clearly not approving of this idea, but still agrees. In the morning, when Claudia opens her eyes, she notices how good she feels. She touches her forehead and makes sure that the temperature has finally gone down. The girl notices Nathan next to her and assumes that he has been sitting next to her throughout the night. When asked about her health, Claudia replies that she feels much better. She notes that because of her, the prince was unable to sleep normally, after which she suggests that he at least rest now. When she gets out of bed, the guy asks her in disappointment why she is always in such a hurry. The guy says that even now she immediately tries to get out of bed, despite the fact that she had a fever all night. He wonders if she has achieved her main goal when she broke the marriage contract and became engaged to him. Nathan points out that she has no rush now, and then asks why they can't continue living at a more leisurely pace. In fact, her real goal was to leave this place, which she could not say out loud. Her conscience gnawed at her, but she simply could not act differently. She agrees that the goal has been achieved, and then says that she just wants to help him. Claudia says that her potion has a limited duration of action, and since this is the first time she has removed a curse that has been hanging on a person for a long time, she has not yet found a way to do this, which is what she wanted to fix. The prince suddenly asks what she will do after he ascends the throne, and the curse is lifted. She says that after this, she plans to go very far away. Even if she explained what this place was, he still wouldn't understand. The place she wanted to go to, and this world were too different from each other. She lived there all her life and was close to fully adapting to that place. But in the end, she ended up here. Claudia says that this is a very distant place, which the guy definitely doesn't know about. The prince asks if she would like to tell him more about him. Seeing her silence, he understands that he will not receive an answer, so he leaves, saying that she should rest for a while longer. The girl realizes that she couldn't even thank him for his care that night. After a few days, preparations for departure to Charco Island were completed. They said that they were going to search for supplies, but they didn't say a word about the spirit. Nathan says the luggage is almost fully loaded, so they can go upstairs. Suddenly, Claudia notices a rather familiar silhouette, strongly reminiscent of her brother. Luke indignantly asks if she is really going to this island. When asked what he is doing here, the guy says that he came to be her guard. The girl asks what kind of nonsense he is talking about, after which she openly says that he irritates her. Suddenly, Nayla appears from behind him. The guy admits that he didn't really want this at all, but his sister was very worried about Clavdia. Nayla notes with regret that Sharko Island is quite a dangerous place. Clavdia is very touched when she realizes that she was worried about her, which is why she came herself, and even brought Luke. She asks, confused, if her sister is sure she wants to go. Tears begin to well up in the girl's eyes, and she reminds him that the island is very dangerous. Nayla says that everything should be fine because Luke and Nathan will be with them. The prince watches what is happening from afar, thoughtfully. The water spirit is interrupted from his daily routine and notices someone approaching his island. Claudia was overwhelmed with happiness that she would be able to search for the spirit accompanied by her sister. The only problem was that they were awkward around each other. The girl asks Nayla, confused, how she likes the idea of looking for dresses for each other. After some time, she tells that the design of the dresses she chose differs from those sold in the duchy because she bought them in the capital. Clavdia goes through all the options, trying to figure out which one would suit the girl next to her best, and notes that a cutout on the back would look nice. She tells her sister that if she likes something, she can take it. The girl says that, in her opinion, everything will suit Nayla. She tells her that she can take as many dresses as she wants. Suddenly, Nayla mutters that she already knows why she can't wear such dresses. Claudia asks her, confused, what she means. Her sister suddenly smiles strangely and says that everything is okay because she is not obliged to remember all her sins. After some time, Nayla stands in front of the mirror and wonders why she pretends not to know anything. She didn't understand whether it was possible to ever forget something like this. That day, the girl, as usual, scolded the maid, noting that the iron probably wasn't hot enough since her curls wouldn't hold at all. Clavdia looked better every day, so the girl simply could not show up to the party with a bad hairstyle. She shouts at the maid to call someone else as quickly as possible. Nayla turns around and suddenly sees a flat iron approaching in front of her, after which a piercing cry of pain is heard throughout the estate. The maid said that it was her carelessness, but the girl was sure that there was definitely someone behind her. She carefully looks out of her room and notices Clavdia laughing with the others. The girl felt like her sister was discussing the situation with the iron and making fun of the victim. The maids laugh and excitedly ask if she has any more similar stories. Nayla's eyes fill with tears because her suspicions about her sister have just been confirmed. This is how the burn scar appeared on her back. Because of him, she couldn't wear any revealing dresses from then on. The girl really didn't understand why Clavdia had suddenly changed her attitude towards her. She decides that the best defense is a good offense, so she doesn't plan on just sitting at home and taking it. Suddenly, a confused Clavdia appears in her room. She says that she thought that her sister left because she was going to give her a used dress, so the girl came now to give her a new one. Nayla is silent for a while, then suddenly smiles and says that she would be happy to wear it. A few days later, when they were already approaching the island, the wind rose and a very heavy rain began, as if the land was trying to drive them out. Claudia says that the spirit is on the lake, which is in the very heart of the island. According to legend, by following the sounds of the ocarina played by the moon, they will be able to find this lake. Suddenly, Luke makes a very pained face and asks again about the ocarina that the moon plays. He asks if the girl organized the trip because of this absurd nonsense. Clavdia understood perfectly well that she could not allow anyone to develop this argument. Suddenly, Nathan angrily asks what kind of attitude this is towards the princess, and in his presence, the girl notices how angrily her husband began to look at the frightened Luke. Suddenly, Nayla decides to intervene in the dialogue, apologizing in advance for this. She says that if in the end there is no spirit, then the people who arrived with them will definitely be upset. The girl turns to her sister and says that she understands perfectly well that there is no evil intent behind her sister's actions. She says she thinks Claudia was a little hasty in her decision to go to the island. Nayla suddenly asks if her sister will take responsibility if she dies. Clavdia agrees and adds that she is sure that this will not happen. Suddenly, the ship begins to shake violently, which frightens everyone present. The girl doesn't understand what the problem is, because they definitely docked. Suddenly, a frightened male scream is heard from outside. Everyone immediately runs out of the room and starts asking what's going on. A huge creature, a water one, appears right in front of them on the ship. Luke nervously notes that they are probably finished. Clavdia smiles and notes that everything is going as she planned. She asks a frightened Nayla to bring several bottles of rum from the pantry. Although the water spirit now looked more disgusting than in the game, the girl had previously gone from a fisherman to the king of pirates. Claudia tells the trumpeter to go to the front line and blow his horn, and everyone else to whistle as loudly as they can. Nathan suddenly shouts for everyone to follow the princess's instructions without question. The ears of the water creatures were highly sensitive to high-frequency sounds, so the monster became very weak when he heard the sounds around him. Nayla returns quickly enough with the bottles in her hands and hands them to her sister. Claudia immediately pours the entire contents onto the monster because their skin melts from the alcohol. The water sprite makes its last sound and disappears into the depths of the body of water they are swimming through. Everyone suddenly starts to rejoice and shout that Claudia was able to save them all. Nathan suddenly notices that Nayla's face expresses more sadness than happiness for her sister. After some time, she crumples that same dress in her room, wishing death on her sister. The girl, bursting into tears, decides that Claudia began giving her orders to show her superiority. The prince, quietly observing all this, slowly moves away. Claudia realizes that they don't have any time at all, so they must return to search the island tomorrow morning. It was necessary to divide the staff into those who would guard the ship and those who would go with her. She was going to take with her the person she could trust completely, Nathan, because Luke and Neela were in question. The girl decides that it would be better to leave them with the wounded on the ship. Suddenly, the prince comes into her room and asks why she is not sleeping late at night. She reports that she was thinking about the composition of the people who would go to explore the island in the morning. Suddenly, the guy puts a piece of fabric on the table, asking to look at it. He reports that before his eyes, Nayla was tearing her dress like a madwoman, verbally wishing death on her sister. Nathan asks if something happened between them, because she seemed to be very upset with Claudia. Although the girl considered people's hatred towards her to be natural, she didn't think that even her own sister hated her. In the game, she didn't care about Claudia, but she lived all her lives faithfully and honestly. The girl was no longer sure that she could say that she knew the real Nayla. She understands that the same story can change completely, depending on the point of view. Suddenly, many events from the past, in which her sister also participated, begin to play through her head. She assumed that the image she saw as Claudia was her true essence. The girl knew that if Nayla really hated her, then one day he would want to harm her. Claudia sadly admits that in that case, she will have to get rid of her. Every time the girl returned from her 3 part-time jobs, she would fall tiredly onto the bed and pick up her phone. Nayla immediately met her and told her good news, encouraging the girl. Although the part-time job took a lot of effort, thanks to the character she was able to attend the academy, she was ready to cope for the sake of a dream, if it would happen together with her favorite hero. The girl decides that she will not draw conclusions until she sees everything for herself, because Nayla was once her best friend. Claudia reports that she, Luke, and Nayla will be conducting the search of the island tomorrow. She says with confidence that the 3 of them will go there. The girl informs that His Highness will have to stay on the ship. Nayla doesn't understand why they are the only ones going if Claudius is in danger without the first prince. She couldn't understand what her sister was even thinking when she made decisions like that. That evening, Claudia explained that someone was needed to stay and defend the ship because the wounded would not be able to cope on their own. She said that they have soldiers, and Luke is the commander, although he doesn't have much experience. The girl also said that she had studied the island and now knew a way to exterminate every monster here, so nothing dangerous awaited them. Nathan asked hesitantly why she would take her brother with her when something bad might happen. Claudia dismissed the matter by saying that it had nothing to do with the prince. When asked why he couldn't intervene in this, she replied that it was personal for her. The guy reminded her that she promised to lift the curse from him and help him ascend the throne. He said that if she didn't keep her promise, he would have a hard time, to which she said that he should just trust her. Watching them leave, Nathan wonders why his wife doesn't want to open up to him. There was no monster that the girl did not know and did not know how to get rid of. The only difficulty was in commanding the soldiers, so she simply hoped that they would have enough faith in each other. Suddenly, the soldiers begin to worry when they hear strange sounds nearby. A whole swarm of poisonous bees suddenly appears in front of them. Luke immediately orders everyone to calm down, stay in line, and protect the ladies. Claudia tells the soldiers not to approach her, to put on protective gear, and to go left towards the valley at the foot of the mountain, moving down the river. Everyone has a lot of questions, but they are immediately ordered to obey. Upon arrival, the girl immediately asks if everything is okay. She asks those who can move to check the area for monsters. Claudia understands that she needs to go higher, from where she can see everything, because she didn't have a detailed map, and in this case, it would be better to go to the center of the island. She announces that they must climb to the top of the mountain today, and then suggests that they begin their climb as soon as the others return. Nayla suddenly says that they may be okay, but the soldiers still fought monsters. She says that they are probably too tired, so it would be better if they rest longer. The girl suddenly asks if finding the spirit is more important to her than the lives of soldiers. Claudia immediately denies this and explains that if it gets dark, it will become even more dangerous. She also adds that they have a limited supply of food, so they should hurry. Nayla approaches the soldiers and asks them to be patient for a little while, because once they reach the top, they will be able to properly rest. After a while, they set up a small camp to replenish their strength. The soldiers communicate among themselves that the previously surmountable distance was quite large. One of them says that he is waiting for Claudia, because she promised that she would bring medicinal herbs, and Nayla hears this. The next day, she approaches her sister and asks what she is doing. The girl suddenly offers her help in collecting medicinal herbs when she receives an answer. Claudia carefully wraps the light fabric around the tree trunk. Her sister asks in surprise why she is doing this at all. The girl says that if they get lost, they will follow the scraps of fabric and they will lead them straight to the camp. Nayla looks thoughtfully at one of these marks, following her sister like a little tail. Clavdia suddenly says that she would really like to ask her something. She stops abruptly and asks why she said that then. The girl explains that she is talking about the moment when Nayla said that finding the spirit was more important to her than the lives of the soldiers. The sister explains that the soldiers look tired, after which she asks if she is meddling in something that is none of her business, to which she receives consent. Clavdia reminds that she is the one leading this expedition, so next time the girl better not create difficulties for her. Nayla apologizes, but as they continue on their way, her expression immediately changes. The girl assumes that her sister decided that she would be uncomfortable being around her, so she went to collect in another place. Clavdia thinks that she scolded her in vain, because she hardly wanted anything bad. She understood that if this had been the Nayla she knew, she definitely would not have said those words about her attitude towards the soldiers. The girl had already realized that the real Nayla was not such a good person, but she decided to observe a little longer. After a while, she lifts her basket of herbs and decides to return. Claudia starts calling her sister, trying to figure out where she is. When she doesn't hear an answer, she suddenly starts to get very worried. The girl couldn't even guess where Nayla had gone, even though she had told her not to go far. She decides that she has simply returned to camp. When Claudia turns around, she suddenly notices that all the marks she had been given have suddenly disappeared. She sees some thieving crows nearby and decides that they are the ones who did it. The girl had a map and a compass with her, so finding her way should not have been difficult for her, but her sister had nothing. She bursts into the camp, remembering that the forest is incredibly dangerous at night. Clavdia shouts that they urgently need to search the forest, when suddenly she sees her sister laughing with the soldier in front of her. She also sees a basket nearby, containing the fabrics she used for markings. Nayla suddenly notices the new arrival, and approaches her in confusion. She was holding ground medicinal herbs in her hands, which was very noticeable. Claudia asks fearfully if she used the grass in its raw form. She suddenly shouts at the soldiers to wash the grass off the wounds immediately. Everything should be fine in the near future. But due to the poison contained in the petals, side effects could appear within a few days. Suddenly, Nayla angrily asks if the problem is that she was the one treating the soldiers, not her sister, and then asks if she is afraid that she will simply take credit for her work. Claudia immediately realizes that this is not at all the Nayla she knows. She immediately becomes gloomy and asks her sister to talk calmly somewhere else. After some time, sitting at the table, the soldiers notice that Nayla has amazing culinary skills. They say that the girl is great because she not only heals well, but also cooks. Luke laughs, but is very worried that his sister spent more food than planned, and they will not be returning to the ship anytime soon. The guy was sure that if he reported the problem to Claudia, there would be chaos again. The place where the spirit resided was a lake at the highest point of the island. They were in the center now, so they should have heard the sounds of the moon ocarina from the nearby cliff. The girl wanted to look around, but decided that it would be right to finish the conversation with her sister first. She wonders why Nayla went to the camp, leaving her alone, and even removed all the marks. Claudia sternly asks for what purpose she did this. Suddenly, Luke runs up to them and says that they can't do this to Nayla. The girl asks him to leave and says that they have something to discuss together. He grabs his stepsister by the hand and begins to lead her towards the camp. Clavdia approaches him and asks why he is interfering with their dialogue. Luke suddenly pushes her away from him, and the girl flies straight to the edge of the cliff on which they were standing. He turns around and looks at his sister in shock, afraid of what might happen now. Clavdia manages to grab hold of the edge of the cliff with her hands and hangs on it. The guy shouts to her that he will come right away and help her up. He starts to approach, but Nayla suddenly runs forward, heading straight for the hanging one. Claudia rejoices, expecting help to be almost at hand. Suddenly, her sister pulls her hands away, tearing them away from the edge of the cliff. The last thing Claudia saw was Nayla's gloomy face, on which there was a creepy smile, as well as her words of farewell. The minority of soldiers remaining on the ship were tasked with restoring the building in just one day. The only thing that motivated them was how hard Nathan worked with them. Sometime later, sitting in his office, the prince was discussing the hostile duchy. Now, SBR could boast of resources and diplomacy, but about 20 years ago, there was a rebellion against the empire, as a result of which the duchy was almost destroyed. The ministers then tried to suppress the rebellion at its first signs, but in the end, the emperor showed magnanimity and simply signed a peace treaty, thanks to which they were able to maintain peaceful relations for a long time. Unexpectedly, the current Duke of SBR, Elias, decided to turn his sword on his allies. Nathan knew that they had to win with minimal losses, and their strength of spirit would help them a lot in this. The prince suddenly begins to doubt whether it was the right decision to let Claudia go to the island alone for this. Luke asks his sister, frightened, what she just did. Suddenly, she starts screaming, which causes great surprise in the guy. When Nayla turns around, he notices tears on her face. She asks him to call someone as soon as possible, which Luke does immediately. The man says it looks like Claudia was swept away by the current. He reports that in such a situation, the chances of surviving are minimal. Suddenly, he wonders how something like this even happened. Nayla joins the conversation and says that it was an accident. She says that Claudia dragged her away by force, which Luke tried to prevent. The guy asks what she's even talking about if he was going to help his sister, and Nayla just dumped her. Suddenly, the girl begins to ominously claim that Luke is to blame for this, because it was because of him that she hung on the cliff and fell. He looks at her in shock, not understanding at all why she is hiding the truth that she was the one who threw Claudia off. A few days later, Nathan stands on the ship, reflecting on the fact that there has been no news at all from the research team. A man approaches him and asks if his headache is coming back. The guy says it's just a mild migraine, without dwelling on it. He turns around and suddenly notices lights in the distance. Someone starts shouting joyfully that the research team has returned. Nathan looks closely and suddenly realizes that his wife is not among them. Luke flies with all his might straight into the wall. The prince angrily asks if he seriously pushed his own sister off the cliff. He announces that no one will leave the island until they find Claudia, and then orders a search party to be formed immediately. A man standing nearby apologizes and says that it is unlikely that this will be possible to organize now. Nathan turns around and notices the terrible state the soldiers are in. Nayla reports that the medicinal herb that Claudia used is to blame. The prince suddenly turns around and says that he will go searching alone. He orders them to focus on healing and also to send them out to search for those who are not too badly injured. After this, he immediately leaves, while people shout after him about how dangerous it is. Claudia, thrown onto the shore by the waves, slowly rises. The first thing she does is try to remember the last events that happened to her. An image of Nayla smiling evilly before she threw her off suddenly appears before her. The girl realizes that no matter how much her sister hated her, this was really too much. She decides that she needs to calm down first and find a way to the ship. Suddenly, she hears a sound very similar to the moon ocarina. Claudia immediately heads in the direction from which she hears this noise. Suddenly, the spirit of water himself appears before her. He angrily asks what the man is doing here. Nathan confidently makes his way through the forest, constantly shouting his wife's name. He tried to guess where she might be, but even that proved too difficult a task. Suddenly, a monster attacks the guy and leaves deep scratches on his arm. He turns around and notices that it is a young bat. Suddenly, the creature's huge parent appears before him, preparing to attack. Claudia is very happy that the information that she needs to follow the sounds of the moon ocarina turned out to be true. She was absolutely sure that she had come to the right place. The girl reports that she was heading here to conclude a contract. When the spirit hears about the agreement, he only smirks smugly. Suddenly, Claudia is surrounded by a huge ball of water. She notices that for some reason she can no longer breathe, which frightens her greatly. The spirit asks her to look at how weak and helpless she is, and then asks what kind of agreement they could possibly be talking about. The creature removes the water ball and tells that once a man had already approached him, but because of his greed and stupidity, his descendants still suffer from the curse. Claudia points out that she was right about the spirit curse not being just a legend. The creature informs her that she must prove herself worthy to the contract, but if she fails, she will be punished. He says that social status and personal wealth will not surprise him at all, because for him, such things are more meaningless than dust. The girl didn't know if she could say anything at all, other than that she had previously chosen the profession of a spirit agent. She reports that she came from another world, where the language, culture, people, etc. were completely different. Claudia reveals that before arriving, she chose to be the spirit's counterpart. The spirit is greatly surprised that she was able to choose a part of her own destiny. She says that she knows that the spirit can look into the human consciousness and then asks to use this ability. Suddenly, Nathan hears a painfully familiar voice nearby. He immediately heads in his direction and after a while sees a completely unharmed Clavdia. Luke, lying on the bed, thinks about how the prince dared to beat him, the future duke. He planned to tell his father and his majesty about this as soon as he returned home. The guy moves his hand and suddenly feels incredible pain. He doesn't understand how he got into this situation at all if Nayla is to blame for it. Luke realizes that despite his sister's hatred for Claudia, this is still murder. He thinks that Nayla was afraid of herself and did not want to accept reality. If this were the case, then perhaps everything would fall into place. Luke sits up from his bed and decides that he needs to talk to his sister about what happened. The soldier desperately asks Nayla to save him from unbearable pain. She frowns and doesn't understand why she has to do all this at all. The guy turns to her again and begs her to do something. Nayla squeezes the glass in anger, causing the entire contents to spill onto the wounded man. After a while, she stands in her room and throws the dishes with all her might at the nearest wall. She asks herself how much longer she has to do all this. The girl did not understand what the prince hoped for if a person could not survive after falling from such a cliff. She felt it was more important to get to dry land to heal the soldiers, since she couldn't do anything with them. Suddenly, she hears her brother's surprised voice behind her. He asks her to explain what has been happening to her lately. The guy claims that she lied about not being involved in Claudia's fall. Nayla reminds him that he knows very well how hard her life was. She says that before this, emotions had been building up inside her, and there were so many of them that at one point she simply exploded. The girl takes Luke's hand and says that she is very scared. She admits that lately she has been saying and doing strange things more and more often. Nayla explains that this is why he has to protect her. She says that it doesn't matter what she does, because he has to be on her side. The spirit notes that the girl is quite self-confident, since she asks him to look at her memories. He nevertheless accepts her offer and begins to study her past. He manages to see absolutely everything that she experienced, but until the moment when she just woke up in Claudia's body. This seems very strange to him, because usually he always managed to read a person's entire past. The spirit notes that her memories up to a certain point are so black, as if ink had been spilled on them. He says that her memories are probably protected by someone higher up than the spirit. The creature explains that we are now talking about God himself. It was completely unclear to him why such a great creature would guard this man. He understands perfectly well that God must have good reasons for this. Suddenly, Claudia asks if this information is not enough for the spirit. She wonders if this means she is special, because she is protected by God himself. The girl says that this should be enough to at least conclude a contract with her. The spirit thinks very seriously about her words, as she mentally begs him for an agreement. The creature says that it still agrees to enter into an agreement with her. He notes that he would still like to know who she is, and what her intentions are. The spirit suddenly takes her hand and kisses it gently. A ring appears on the girl's finger, which serves as a link between them. The creature says that the decoration needs to be given a name to complete the contract, and Claudia names it Elliot. Afterwards, she asks how she can get out of here, and the spirit suggests that she climb onto the water column he created. Suddenly, he asks whether they should take the person standing nearby with them. Claudia turns around and suddenly sees a shocked Nathan in front of her. She had no idea how long he had been here or how much he had heard. Suddenly, she notices a lot of blood on him and realizes that he is badly injured. The girl asks if he came here alone. She knew very well that the island was teeming with high-ranking monsters, so the boy shouldn't have come here alone. She glances at his wounds again and wonders where all that blood came from. Nathan tells her that he would like to ask her something. She suddenly interrupts him and asks why he did this. The girl almost screams and asks why he went to such a dangerous place alone. Lately, she had been very concerned about the changed sparkle in his eyes. She wondered why he was looking at her like that. Clavdia turns around and asks him not to do it again, after which she reminds him that the fate of the entire country depends on him. She really wanted there to be no feelings between them, because she would have to leave this world very soon. The girl wanted him to leave his feelings for someone else. When Clavdia moves away a little, the guy suddenly feels a piercing pain. Luke wonders uncertainly if it could be that the Nayla he knew before is just a composite image. Suddenly, he becomes gloomy and decides that Claudia deserved such a death. He suddenly notices that he really regrets not having killed her himself. One of the soldiers suddenly starts screaming loudly. He points his finger fearfully at a huge column of water nearby. Luke tenses up, deciding it's another monster. The pillar begins to shrink, and two familiar silhouettes can be seen inside. Nayla runs out of the cabin, not understanding anything, and suddenly sees her sister alive in front of her. Claudia happily reports that she found the spirit and returned with him. The sister looks at her in fear, not understanding how she managed to survive. The girl happily greets everyone. She asks how the soldiers are feeling, to which she is told that the symptoms include intense thirst and high temperature. Suddenly, someone nearby asks if Nathan is okay with his injured arm, but the girl decides not to focus on it. Claudia reports that the soldier suffered a side effect from the medicinal herb. They start whispering about how Nayla had previously said that she knew about medicinal herbs, which turned out to be a lie. Several guys approach Luke and say that they are glad that the talk about Claudia's death turned out to be false. The girl, hearing this, decides to invite him to talk alone. She didn't understand how he could be so stern when his sister had returned unharmed after falling off a cliff. Claudia asks how it happened that everyone says that it was he who pushed her. He says that these words are true, when suddenly the girl grabs him by the collar and asks again if it is true. The guy again says that everything was exactly like that, after which she reminds him that it was Neil who pushed her. Suddenly, Luke becomes very angry and shouts that her version is not true. He says that the girl saw nothing, and her words are a huge misconception. Claudia had always craved brotherly love from the boy, despite the fact that he was on Neela's side. And it was unclear why Luke was so good to his half-sister. She wonders if he really doesn't care even about the murder charges, since it's for Nayla. The girl did not understand why he was willing to gladly take on this terrible crime for her sake, but was not willing to do anything for her sake. Claudia hesitantly asks what he felt at the moment she fell. When asked if he felt any remorse or sadness, she receives a negative answer. Luke tells her that her teasing of Nayla was much worse than this, when suddenly the girl asks him to shut up. She says that she understands perfectly well why her sister hates her, but she has done nothing wrong to him. Claudia asks why he is rejecting her now, when he once said he would always take care of her, and then asks if it is only because she bullied Nayla. The guy says he doesn't really have an answer to her question. He reports that the girl always pretends not to know about all her misdeeds, which disgusts him. Luke asks her not to pretend that she doesn't know, because that very day she couldn't fool everyone. He suddenly declares that it was she who killed their birth mother. It was known that the Duchess had died before the game began due to an accident. Claudia asks him to tell about that incident in more detail. The boy reports that that day their mother fell down the stairs and died. He was sure that someone had pushed her, but the criminal could not be found. Some time after the incident, Nayla approached him and said that she saw Claudia arguing with her mother right before the tragedy. Besides that, she brought something from the crime scene, his sister's favorite necklace. Luke says that it was that day that she became the prime suspect in his eyes. But he kept quiet at Nayla's request, because he didn't want their family to suffer again. He decides that it was in vain that he fulfilled her request for silence, because from a kind sister, Claudia turned into a terrible villainess. The girl suddenly asks sternly if he has finished his story. She says that the evidence is just an unfounded accusation. Claudia asks if he really believed the words, and possibly falsified evidence of his half-sister, and decided that his own sister was guilty of his mother's death. Tears slowly begin to roll down her cheeks, and she asks how he could do this to her. She didn't understand how her own brother could make her an immoral freak who killed her own mother. The butler reports that this is their strongest painkiller. He notes that this is the first time something like this has happened since the boy grew up. The man says it's serious, as it's one of the symptoms of his hereditary curse. He notes that the prince needs to return to the palace as soon as possible. Claudia, sitting in her room in tears, cannot believe that he really thought that she killed her own mother, and that he even had the courage to say it out loud. She realizes that since childhood, everyone has pointed fingers at her character, even her own brother. The girl did not understand why Claudia had to suffer so much. She wondered if Nayla really wanted her sister to remain innocent if her accusation was more likely to be false. Claudia realizes that the girl actually testified against her on purpose. There were no witnesses other than Nayla, that she had a fight with her mother right before that incident. She was sure that her sister played a significant role in what happened. The girl decides that she cannot leave it like that, because only she could prove that Claudia, as a character, was not guilty. As soon as the ship returns, her father immediately rushes to meet her. He asks if she knows how worried he was, then asks if she got hurt. Claudia asks him to speak a little more quietly, because she was embarrassed by the way everyone was looking at them. The man asks where Nathan is, and she tells him that he was feeling unwell, which is why he immediately went to the palace. As soon as they reached land, he immediately left and did not even say a word goodbye to Claudia. The girl asks if the Duke minds if she goes home instead of to the palace. He immediately understands that some difficult conversation awaits him. Luke decides to take a look at Nayla and notices how angry and nervous she looks. The Duke notes that it is quite a rare occasion when she herself asks for time. He asks if the topic will be related to the prince, after which he suggests that it will be a complaint about an unfair accusation. Hearing the latter, the girl asks if his words are somehow connected with Nayla. The Duke notes that he had only heard similar complaints from her about her sister, which meant that Claudia had already opened up to her father. Suddenly, she wonders what the man thinks about Neil. She says that it has been quite some time since they have lived together, so she wonders what he thinks of her as a family member. The Duke says he feels a little awkward and doesn't really want to talk about his stepdaughter. Claudia says that in that case, she will tell him directly, and then asks if there is a connection between their mother's death and Nayla. She notices that the man's expression has changed, so he was definitely hiding something. When asked why she is asking such a question, the girl shares that Luke thinks that his own sister is guilty of his mother's death. Claudia says outright that it was Nayla who made him think that she did it. She says that she is terribly offended and wants to resolve this misunderstanding as quickly as possible. The Duke says that Nayla is his daughter, and although they are not related by blood, he raised her, so she is a member of his family. He knew that their relationship left nothing but hope for the best. He knew about their quarrels over His Highness, but he still believed that they would become friends sooner or later. Claudia suddenly says that she didn't ask that question in order to find out such obvious things. The Duke says that Nayla definitely has a terrible dark side. He says that at their mother's funeral, the girl laughed for some reason. The man says that maybe he imagined it, because he was not in the best mental state at the time, after which he adds that he has nothing more to tell, and what happened to her mother was an accident. The girl, leaving the Duke's office, immediately calls for Elliot. She says that she didn't want to disturb him unnecessarily, but since the matter happened a long time ago and there is no proper evidence, only he can help her. The spirit says that her guess is true, after which she shows the last memories of the Duchess. Nayla slowly approaches her very exhausted mother. She notes that the woman is holding up very well, and then asks if she should have pushed her harder. Claudia is frightened and thinks that this cannot be. The image of Nayla, whom she once considered the most beautiful person in the world, appears before her eyes. The girl tried her best to believe that she was good, but in the end, she turned out to be a real demon. Several days pass, and several maids slowly enter Claudia's room. They had to take turns telling her everything they knew. One of them reports that she accidentally burned Neela's back, but she said that she would forgive everything if the maid put all the blame on Claudia. After the girl learned the truth about the Duchess's case, she began to suspect that her character had received the status of a villain solely because of her sister. The maid reports that, according to Nayla, in addition to the burn mark, she has many more wounds, and her sister is to blame for them. As a result, thanks to Marie, one of the maids, and Elliot, the memories of Claudia's life before the body change filled in a little. The girl looks out the window and thinks that she seems to have finished all the work at the residence. The Duke approaches her from behind, upset that she is already leaving, and then asks when she will return. Claudia says that she plans to meet with the Emperor, and why go in search of another spirit? She understood perfectly well that the more treaties she had, the faster they would end the war. The Duke thoughtfully says that if she ever finds herself in difficulty, she can always turn to him. The girl experienced parental love for the first time and realized how pleasant it was. Suddenly, girls who once ran away as soon as they saw her approach her. They handed her a letter, which Claudia immediately began to read. The girls wrote that thanks to her, they were able to receive an education in evening school and develop. They thanked her for what she had invested in them. The girl was surprised at how good a person Claudia really was. The Duke notices that his daughter has an unhealthy complexion. Nayla said she was just a little worried, which was true, because her father might find out about what happened on the island. The man suddenly declares that he is going to send her to the Imperial Academy. The girl is very surprised, and the Duke asks if she is going to become Empress. Nayla reminds him of how he said that she was too young for this academy, to which he replies that she already has the right reputation. He asks her to start getting ready as soon as possible, and the girl bursts into tears of happiness. Earlier, Claudia, sitting opposite her father, declares that they should send Nayla to the Imperial Academy. The Duke, already aware of what happened on the island, remarks that it would be better to simply drive her away. The girl says that it is not good to act without clear evidence, especially since her sister has a good reputation. Claudia wanted to send her sister to the academy because it was quite far from their home. Standing by the window, Luke thinks about how his sister, after returning, acted as if he wasn't there, and now she's leaving without saying anything. He recalls her words that the evidence in the form of jewelry was just an unfounded accusation. The guy realizes that he is starting to doubt that he made a mistake. Suddenly, Claudia comes into his room, which surprises him greatly because he thought that his sister had already left. The girl says that she has decided to say goodbye after all, and then asks him to take care of his only sister, Neela. She says that what happened to their mother has nothing to do with her, and then turns around to leave. Luke reaches out to her, trying to stop her, when suddenly the water spirit appears in front of him. Elliot insists that the boy not approach his mistress. The guy leans against the nearest wall in fear, catching his breath. Neela, sitting over a cup of tea, thinks about her imminent departure to the academy. It seemed extremely strange to her that her father had decided to do this so suddenly. She was worried that her sister was up to something again. Suddenly, a maid enters the room and reports that the girl has received a letter from the prince. It was a surprise proposal with a ring through a letter. The girl decides that her father simply knew about this in advance, which is why he decided to send her to the academy. She smiles, realizing that she was able to beat Claudia and take the place of the empress. Suddenly, Luke enters the girl's room, declaring his desire to talk. The guy wanted to discuss in detail what happened on the island, because they never finished that conversation. Neela understood that her brother had helped her a lot to get to where she was now, but she had already received approval from her father and an offer from the prince, so she no longer needed the guy. The girl suddenly declares that the two of them have nothing more to talk about. The doctor reports that he has not noticed anything life-threatening, but the prince's body is very weak, so he needs a lot of rest. He says that it looks like he won't be able to escape his curse. Dvoretsky suggests that it is too early to draw conclusions, since that very symptom has not yet manifested itself. After some time, Nathan finally had some energy again, and his daily life returned to normal. In the last few days, he could not think of anything else except what he had seen on the island. He didn't understand what kind of dialogue this was about God himself. The guy also remembers how Claudia asked why he went to such a dangerous place alone. He himself did not understand why he went to save her, risking himself. Nathan often found himself surprised by his own actions lately. He didn't understand what the reason was. The guy wondered if his wife could find the answer to this question. Claudia, lying on the bed, realized how many things awaited her ahead. After Elliot's existence was revealed, she would immediately need to prepare for war, so she had to study the power of the spirit well first. The girl was glad that they had Commander Nathan on their side, whom she could trust. She realizes that she should have thanked him for coming for her back on the island. She felt ashamed for the way she had behaved then, because the guy could have come because he was worried about her. She decides that she will have to apologize as soon as they meet. Suddenly, she sees her husband in front of her and immediately says hello. Nathan turns around and tells her to hurry. The girl decides that he must be very angry. Suddenly, he turns and extends his hand to his wife. The guy says that feeling unwell is no excuse to neglect his bride. He says he hopes she doesn't mind giving him her hand. Claudia smiles tenderly and agrees to his little proposal. They bow slightly, greeting His Majesty. The girl reports that thanks to his blessing, they returned safely and also brought good news. She notices that all the commanders have gathered in the throne room. The man reports that there was a sudden invasion recently. Regis asks his father to entrust this matter to him, promising to bring the severed head of the enemy along with the banner of victory. Claudia understood that if His Majesty agreed, the guy would be one step closer to receiving the throne. She suddenly declares that she must report a new advantage to the Empire. The man, intrigued by her words, asks again if she is talking about a new advantage. The girl calls out the name of the water spirit, calling him to her. She is surrounded by the element of water, when suddenly the Emperor becomes suspiciously quiet. He asks fearfully what it is. Claudia says that she found a water spirit on Charcot Island and made a deal with him, because his powers can help the Empire. She says she won't be able to show her full spirit since they are indoors, but they could go to a lake or the sea. Suddenly, the man screams at her to get rid of Elliot right now. The Emperor asks his eldest son if he has gone mad. He wonders if the one who put the curse on the imperial family has forgotten. Claudia, hearing this, cannot believe her ears that the royal family is actually cursed by a spirit. The curse of the imperial family had existed for a very long time, since the reign of the first emperor, but the girl could not even imagine that it was sent by a spirit. Nathan tells his father not to worry, reminding him that his curse is weakening. He adds that his wife is very smart and calculating, so even such a dangerous force will not be able to harm her. The Emperor again tells the girl to get rid of the spirit as quickly as possible. After leaving the throne room, Nathan apologizes for not being able to calm his father down. He suggests trying again a little later, but is immediately refused. Claudia suddenly says that it's time for them to leave. She says that they should find the second spirit. A conversation with the Emperor led her to the idea that the cause of the illness was the spirit itself. If her hypothesis were correct, then finding the second spirit would not be difficult. Following this logic, one could conclude that Claudia had found another spirit besides Elliot, the one who had cast a curse on the imperial family. The girl just needed to continue moving confidently towards her goal. First, she was going to call on the water spirit, because he must surely know something. Suddenly, Claudia hears a scream, which immediately brings her out of her thoughts. Nathan asks threateningly what she's even doing. The girl repeats that she is heading for another spirit, after which she asks to tell the Emperor that she has gone to bring Elliot back. The prince angrily asks why she always behaves so selfishly. He wonders if the contract is really more important to her than her life. Nathan points out that on the day she found the water spirit, he didn't have time to think about such a trifle. He says that the only thing he wanted then was to save her. The guy admits that those experiences still haven't left him, while she so desperately and recklessly risks her life. The prince asks why she is leaving again, completely alone, without relying on anyone. He wonders if he plays any role in her destiny, or is just a profitable partner. Claudia suddenly turns around and leaves, saying that she doesn't have much time, and that they should talk later. Nathan immediately reaches out his hand in an attempt to grab her, but fails to reach. Suddenly, he feels a piercing pain that is terribly piercing. The guy falls to his knees, breathing heavily. Regis, watching this whole scene, sighs thoughtfully. The water spirit announces that they have finally arrived at their destination. Claudia has a beautiful view of the field of Saloon. She is glad that Elliot knows where the fire spirit lives, and then asks if they are close. The creature immediately gives a negative answer, which leaves the girl stunned. Claudia asks him to summon the spirit of fire, and he asks if she is sure she wants this meeting. Elliot tells her that his friend is very cruel and dangerous, but she still insists on meeting. He sighs heavily and notes how stubborn the girl is. The water spirit says that they will meet a little later, and then leaves her. Claudia approaches the suddenly appeared fire and suddenly notices a spirit among it. Suddenly, the creature turns into air and asks for someone to show themselves. He begins to threaten to burn the girl to ashes if he doesn't stick his neck out. Nathan, lying unconscious, lets out a painful cry. The servants, concerned about his condition, quickly try to do something. The guy, barely overcoming himself, asks the creature to leave his body. The spirit of fire asks someone to show themselves again. He asks if he cares about Claudia's fate. Elliot suddenly appears in front of the girl, noting that his friend still has the same bad character. The spirit of fire angrily grabs the newly emerged man by the clothes and pulls him towards itself. He wonders why he didn't let him come to his island, and then he came to him himself. Claudia had originally expected the fire spirit to have a fiery temper, so she wasn't surprised. She gets up and says that she asked Elliot to bring her to him. The spirit of fire wonders what a mere mortal suddenly needs from him. The girl introduces herself and says that a contract had previously been signed between her and Elliot. She reports that she came here for exactly the same purpose. When the spirit of fire hears this, he angrily directs the flame towards Claudia. He asks why he should make a pact with a sack of meat that could turn to ashes at his touch. Elliot suddenly notices that all he can do is swear. The spirit of fire informs her that he does not intend to jump on his hind legs in front of her and obey her every word. The girl says that the terms of the contract will be equal for everyone, and there will be no masters or servants. Elliot angrily asks his acquaintance to stop directing flames at them, warning that his patience is wearing thin. The spirit of fire suddenly says that he agrees to give them a chance, since they are so prostrate before him. He informs her that Claudia must sacrifice a person dear to her within 30 days, and then he will enter into a contract with her. The creature adds that if he does not get what he wants after this period, then she will become his victim. Claudia was sure that she would not get through this without difficulties. She suddenly says that she agrees to his conditions. The girl adds that the spirit will accompany her everywhere for these 30 days. The spirit of fire immediately agrees, noting that he just needs to have a conversation with Elliot. The water spirit asks Claudia if she is sure of her decision. She knew she wasn't going to put anyone in danger. She had slightly different plans, so she gave a positive answer to the question that had just been asked of her. In the allotted month, she intended to win the favor of the spirit of fire and force him to conclude a full-fledged contract with her. She was glad that she had been given some time, because the war with the duchy lay ahead of them. She had some kind of bad feeling that made her doubt that she was doing everything right. She tried very hard not to mix her obligations and feelings for Nathan, but in the end, she couldn't and simply treated him terribly. The girl decides that the two of them just need a break from each other. Suddenly, she hears a familiar voice behind her. A joyful Regis approaches her. He smiles maliciously and suggests getting straight to the point. The guy asks if she would like to go for a walk with him, when suddenly she is surrounded by soldiers. After some time, she clings to the bars and asks to be released and given at least some explanation. Regis indignantly asks why she is making so much noise. The girl says that she can't believe that he allows himself to be so rude. The prince reminds her that she has violated the order of the emperor himself. He reports that he became an unwitting witness to his conversation with Nathan. Regis says he knows she was planning to go looking for the second spirit. Claudia asks where her husband is, asking to call him to them. The prince notices that the girl abandoned his brother, and now she has shown up, started throwing tantrums, and demanding that he be found. The guy says that as soon as she left, the curse struck him, and he literally collapsed to the floor, and now he suffers from pain in his chambers. The girl looks at her interlocutor with fear, surprised by the news she heard. She says she felt like he was cured of his illness. Regis points out that things are not as simple as she thought. He suggests that his brother's condition worsened precisely because she left him. Claudia begins to deeply regret what she did, thinking that if she had known, she would have acted differently. The prince informs her that her fate now depends entirely on the emperor, so she should just sit and wait for his decision. She didn't understand why she rushed off somewhere headlong and didn't think about the consequences. After a while, the emperor slowly approaches the girl's cell. His face was extremely sad and disappointed. He asks the captive to explain, and she, falling to her knees, says that she deserves to die. Claudia reveals that she simply wanted to save their empire, which is why she disobeyed his order. She says that the power of spirits will definitely help them win the war. The girl asks the emperor to trust her, and she will certainly bring them good news. The man suddenly says that she reminds him very much of the Duke in his youth. He reports that he was a truly great knight. The Duke did not hesitate to rush into battle, even when the outcome of the battle seemed to be predetermined, and literally snatched victory from the clutches of his opponents. The emperor tells that once a knight, defending his life, lost his eye. He says that he will not be able to punish the girl because she looks very much like her father. The man carefully takes the girl's hand into his palms. He says that he will not demand that she give up the powers she has received, but asks that she not use them. Claudia mentally apologizes to him because she needed to make a contract with all the spirits to get to her world. A week later, Regis went to the front. The girl was surprised at how happy the guy was, because after all, he was going to war. She couldn't understand at all why her character was chasing after such an idiot. The emperor suddenly tells Claudia that they need to talk. He asks if she speaks any foreign languages. This is how the quest began, in which it was necessary to receive the delegation. She asks if a delegation from the kingdom of Cirta will be coming to visit them, and the man is surprised that she already knows about it. He confirms her guess and says that he would like to entrust her with escorting the first princess of Cirta. The girl knew that as a result, she could get an increase in all of her character's characteristics, so she said that she didn't know the Cirt language well, but she agreed to the offer because they should get along. She doubted that the same reward would await her because she had no stats, but she decided to try her luck anyway. Claudia asks why she still isn't allowed to see her husband, even though a week has already passed. The butler informs that the prince cannot be visited for now. She couldn't even imagine how bad the guy was, since she hadn't been allowed to see him for so long. It began to seem to her that he was not sick at all, but simply did not want to see her. She was worried that she wouldn't have time to meet him when the delegation arrived. The spirit in Nathan's body, watching the girl from the balcony, remarks that she looks quite pretty. He asks himself what her name is. Nathan sternly tells him not to say his wife's name with his dirty mouth. The spirit notes that they are one, which is why they have one wife, and then says that he can't wait to invite her into their bedroom. Claudia wasn't sure that she would succeed, but she wanted to make sure that the guy was really sick. She whispers to Elliot for help. The girl climbs to the second floor, where the first prince lived. She slowly approaches his bed, examining her peacefully sleeping husband. He looked quite good, and apparently insomnia did not bother him either. Claudia dreamed of talking to him, because that would make her feel much calmer. She decides to leave it for later, since it would be better not to wake him up. Suddenly, the guy gets up and asks who came into his room. He wonders who dared to enter his chambers without permission. The girl immediately introduces herself and says that she came to visit him, after which she apologizes for her insolence. The spirit approaches her and takes her hand, calling her his precious spouse. He asks if she is happy with what she sees, and Claudia answers positively, noting that she was afraid that he was not feeling well at all. She was acting very wary because she had the feeling that the atmosphere had somehow changed. The girl says that now she knows that he is better, so she should leave. The prince grabs her hand again and asks her to stay. He says menacingly that he is sorry to let her go so soon. Claudia, stepping back, notes that it is already quite late. The guy says that if she is worried about his well-being, then he is feeling much better now. He pushes her against the wall and insistently asks her to talk to him. The girl suddenly pushes him away, asking him to stop. The spirit angrily asks what she is doing. He wonders why she is pushing him away if he is her husband. Claudia realizes that this is not the Nathan she knows. She did not understand who was standing in front of her and where her real husband had gone. Nathan suddenly hears a familiar female voice. The spirit again presses the girl against the wall, asking why she is looking at him with such a strange look. He reminds her that he is the first prince of the Belcanis Empire, and that she is his wife. Suddenly, he grabs his head and starts screaming in pain. The spirit asks Nathan to stop resisting, reminding him that his body is no longer his own. The guy suddenly falls to the floor, exhausted. He grabs his head again and fearfully asks the girl to run as quickly as possible. After some time, she manages to put her husband to bed. Everything was back in order, and Nathan was finally sleeping peacefully. Claudia couldn't understand what had happened, but she was sure that she wasn't talking to her husband. Suddenly, Nathan rises from the bed and asks the girl's name questioningly. He grabs her face in concern and asks if she's okay. The guy comes closer and, blushing, studies her with his gaze. Suddenly, he steps back, embarrassed, noting that he has allowed himself to go a little too far. Claudia says that she was told that he was sick. She asks if this is how his illness manifests itself. The girl notes that it definitely wasn't him then. Nathan suddenly says that he doesn't want to talk about it, because their last meeting showed him that he is not at all obliged to tell her about all the details of his life. He is silent for a while and says that he wants to ask her a question. The prince wonders what it means to be chosen by God. He reminds her that he accidentally witnessed how he and the water spirit discussed something like that before making a contract, and she never explained anything to him. Nathan says that she mentioned earlier that she came from another world, and then asks if he should ignore this news as well. He suddenly turns away and sarcastically reminds that they are just partners, and questions are unnecessary. The guy asks if she wants to say anything else, to which she receives a negative answer. He asks why she is sitting here at all then. Claudia admits that she came because she simply wanted to see him. She realizes that she should leave, so she leaves the room. Nathan blushes deeply, causing him to immediately cover his face with his hand. He asks himself why his soul is so heavy. A few days later, a delegation from the Kingdom of Cirta, which borders the Belcanis Empire and the Duchy of Espiar, arrived at the imperial palace. It was in the emperor's interests to give the Princess of Cirta a worthy reception, since the outcome of the upcoming war depended to some extent on which side this country would join. But their relations were not the best, due to a conflict based on dissatisfaction with immigration laws. Claudia didn't understand why they were against the new law if they were changing the structure of the city and building houses for immigrants. As a result, the empire suffered great losses, and the emperor demanded compensation. But the Cirta government declared that they bore no responsibility for this and refused to pay the amount demanded. As a result, relations between the countries became so strained that a diplomatic delegation had to be sent. When the guests finally arrive, the girl immediately tries to figure out where the princess is among them. One of the visitors notes that they haven't visited for a long time, after which he decides to introduce his younger sister, Alina. The nearest knight removes his helmet and greets His Majesty. The emperor introduces the surprised wife of his eldest son, after which he asks her to show the princess the palace. After the guest's face is no longer covered by anything, a stern girl appears before Claudia, who turns out to be the princess herself. Duke Rubello's daughter, heading towards the palace, realizes that she has disappeared. She expected to see an elegant young lady, so she put together a cultural program accordingly. Now, however, Claudia had serious doubts that the princess was interested in such activities. The translator walking next to her suddenly reports that Alina is interested in what she is going to do next. The girl asks their intermediary to find out what the princess would like. The translator reports that the guest is tired from the long journey. Claudia happily invites her to go to the hot springs. Their intermediary suddenly excitedly announces that Elaine would like to go hunting. While adjusting her costume, Claudia recalls the words of the translator that the princess would like to go alone together. Trying unsuccessfully to climb onto the horse, Duke Rubello's daughter realizes that they are not even able to communicate normally. Suddenly, the princess comes up to her and offers her help. Claudia immediately agrees, when she suddenly realizes that her interlocutor, it turns out, speaks the imperial language. The girl stands confusedly near the rabbit, holding a spear in her hands. She sadly recalls that she had never hunted before. Alina is very surprised that her new friend is shaking with fear just because of some rabbit. The princess pulls the bowstring and says that she will catch the animal for her. Duke Rubello's daughter suddenly sees this rabbit running to her family. She immediately stands in front of Alina and asks her to stop. Claudia says that in the Empire, there is a belief that whoever dares to kill an animal with cubs will suffer great misfortune. The girl suggests instead to climb the mountains and enjoy the views from them. Elena, carrying her new acquaintance on her back, wonders why she suggested that she climb the mountains if she knew perfectly well that she didn't have enough strength for it. Claudia apologizes and says that she herself did not expect to be so weak. They finally reach the top of the mountain. The princess says that she was right, and that the entire palace can really be seen from there. Clavdia says that she could not even imagine that the empire was so beautiful, which raises questions from her new acquaintance, but immediately clarifies that she mostly spends time in her possessions. The guest says that she knows a lot about Duke Rubelos, and his daughter clearly does not take after him. Her interlocutor reports that she was often ill as a child, which is why she is now physically weak, which causes her discomfort from time to time. Elena suddenly asks if everything is really as she says. She wonders if it could be that she is simply afraid of getting blood on her noble hands. The girl notes that the imperialists always strive for magnificence and desperately avoid ugliness, but a beautiful facade is not enough. She says that she considers Svitja, a small settlement specially developed for immigrants, to be the brightest area of the empire. The darkest, in her opinion, were the slums located on the lower reaches of the Vale River, where those who were expelled from Sweden were forced to live. Elena says that the kingdom of Cirta itself was once founded by a fellow slum dweller, so they continue to care for the poor with that in mind. She reports that among the immigrants who settled in Svitja, one can also find people originally from Cirta, but the empire does not care at all about their history. The girl asks if her interlocutor knows how those who were expelled from Svitja live. She says that they don't have a normal place to sleep, that they are forced to quench their thirst with rotten river water, and that their life is pure survival, and these people continue to drag out their miserable existence only because they are afraid of dying. Claudia asks again if they live by the Vale River. She specifies exactly where the place where the exiles settled is. After some time, they find themselves at the lower reaches of the Vale River. Clavdia says that she cannot believe that people are forced to live in such terrible conditions. She suddenly notices orphans nearby. Elena says that the shelters run by the church have also closed. She notes that now they have nowhere else to go. Clavdia suddenly gets off her horse and runs up to the orphans. The princess watches what is happening from afar with caution. Duke Rubelo's daughter suddenly hugs the children without saying a word. The emperor indignantly asks if she even realizes how much money was spent on the development of Svitja, after which he clarifies whether she understood correctly that she is asking him to improve another district. Claudia suddenly asks if he knows that the first king of Cirta came from the slums. She explains that the rulers of Cirta have certain principles and ideals, and they have not forgotten their history, which is why they continue to support and protect the weak. But due to the new immigration law and the city's improvement works, many of the poor people of their empire have lost their homes. She felt especially sorry for the children, because they were completely incapable of taking care of themselves, and it was very cruel of them to deprive them of shelter. The girl understood perfectly well what they were feeling, because something similar had once happened to her. Claudia says that correcting the mistakes of the past will help them strengthen their relationship with the kingdom of Cirta, and then perhaps they will support them in the upcoming war. She asks if the emperor does not think that they should share the views of the allies. In the end, her arguments convinced the emperor, and he abandoned his idea of reconstruction, and the girl and Elena took on the implementation of a new project. The work was completed faster than expected, and, albeit temporarily, they managed to resettle the poor back to the Svitja area. Elena says she was worried it would take too long, then thanks her friend. She admits that she was surprised, and did not expect at all that she would be able to persuade the emperor. Claudia reports that His Majesty was deeply moved by the ideals of the kingdom of Cirta, and then expresses her hope that the princess will continue to spread her policy of supporting the weak and defenseless in the future. She also warns that she will soon be leaving on business, and Elena has an idea of what she would like to accomplish before her new acquaintance leaves. The princess suddenly says that she would be glad if they became friends. She says that all the ladies avoided her because of her passion for fencing, but she was not afraid and tried to make Elena's stay in the empire as comfortable as possible. The girl asks if she agrees to become her first friend. Clavdia is very touched and immediately agrees. The princess suddenly says that true friends always come to each other's aid. She reminds that she shared her problem with her, and then asks her interlocutor to do the same. Claudia, after thinking for a bit, realizes that she has something to tell. Lately, she has been very worried about her relationship with Nathan. The girl says that her friend allegedly found herself in a difficult situation. She says that she recently met a man who seems to be interested in her. Claudia calls the man a noble person who has saved her life more than once, The girl says that her friend will have to leave very soon, so she tries not to get attached to him, and he is offended by her behavior, and recently their relationship has become somewhat strained. She says that her friend wants to resolve this conflict, but does not know how to do it. Elena wonders if the girl in question likes the man. She says that, in her opinion, this question is the most important in this situation. The princess says that if the answer is negative, then she should step back. Otherwise, it will not be possible to resolve the conflict. Clavdia admits that she is not indifferent to him. Elena says that if she really has tender feelings for him, then it would be better to be frank with him and honestly explain the reason for her coldness. She says that, in her opinion, even if their story ends in separation, it would be good to do everything possible so that only good memories remain afterwards. The very next day, the CERT delegation had to leave their empire. Elena became Clavdia's friend in this world, and she was ready to do everything to ensure that her memories of her were filled with only joy and warmth. They got together for a walk and came to the imperial market. The princess goes to one of the counters, and Claudia calls her, reminding her that the show is about to begin. Elena suddenly hands her friend a dead frog on a skewer, offering to try it. She approaches Claudia, who starts to run away, not intending to eat it. The girl couldn't remember the last time she laughed so carefree with someone. She suddenly remembers that in this world, she has one more person who cares about her fate, and decides that she will need to thank Nathan a little later. The emperor reports that the settlers will arrive next month, and the situation has been resolved successfully. He says that it is all thanks to those who arrived, after which he expresses his gratitude to them. Elena asks where her friend is, and the emperor says that he himself is wondering the same thing, because she wanted to see the departing party off, but for some reason, she is late. Suddenly, a joyful Clavdia runs into the room, shouting the name of her new friend. She apologizes for being late, then hands the princess a gift box. Clavdia recalls that she once mentioned that she would like to bring some kind of souvenir for her mother. Then at the market, Elena also said that she was worried about this, because the woman had very refined taste. She said that her mother is terribly demanding and picky, so it's easier not to buy anything at all. Clavdia reports that today, she visited the largest jewelry exhibition in the empire. She says that if the woman doesn't like this thing, then Elena can shift all the responsibility onto her new friend. The princess notes that she could have entrusted this to a servant, but she still went to the exhibition herself and chose the decoration for her mother. She says that such a noble act deserves admiration. Elena reports that she has the impression that she only accepts gifts and gives nothing in return. She says that she also wants to give something, after which she kisses Claudia's wrist. The coat of arms of the Kingdom of Cirta appears in this place, but disappears almost immediately. The princess explains that this magic can only be used by members of the royal family, and only once in a lifetime. She asks her friend to remember her gift when someone dear to her, or she herself, is in danger. Claudia immediately throws herself into the princess's arms, thanking her for such a precious gift. Before leaving, Elena said that she would definitely write to her new friend. In the original story, this meeting was just a minor quest, but they actually managed to get closer and even become friends. The girl understands that she was very wrong in that the world she is now in is just a fake, but at least Nathan was a real person. Clavdia, knowing full well about his feelings, continued to avoid meeting him. She decides that they need to meet and discuss everything. They needed to talk about both her and Nathan and his curse. The girl suddenly hears a noise outside and asks the nearest servant what is going on. The guy reports that the emperor ordered everyone to gather due to an emergency. He explains that the vanguard detachment, commanded by the crown prince, found itself in a very difficult situation. Luke, walking down the hallway of his house, suddenly sees his sister along the way. He greets her happily, but Nayla walks past him silently. The guy didn't understand at all why she was behaving like that with him. Before leaving, Claudia told him that it was Nayla who was spreading dirty rumors about her and their mother. Now, Luke wanted to figure out what had happened on Charcot Island. Nayla continued to ignore her brother and did not respond to him when he tried to start a conversation. He was not going to tolerate this any longer, so he ran up to her as she was leaving and grabbed her hand. The girl began to ask him to let her go. Luke suddenly tells her to shut up and follow him. Otherwise, the servants will join their conversation. When they go outside, the guy asks why she is behaving like this towards him. Nayla says that she thought he would always be on her side. But after talking to Claudia, the guy suddenly started making his claims. Luke asks if she has ever thought about his situation. He asks her to remember what happened on Charcot Island, and asks if he could have done the same. Nayla wonders if it's because of the time he pushed his sister off the cliff. She asks how she can live with this if she saw everything with her own eyes. The girl says that even though they are relatives, she cannot remain silent about this. She asks if he wants her to take all the blame. Luke suddenly grabs her by the shoulders and asks what's wrong with her, reminding her that she was the one who pushed Claudia. Nayla indignantly asks how he can say such a thing. She suddenly says that Prince Regis recently made her an official proposal. The girl explains that very soon she will really become an empress. She asks her brother to control himself in this situation for the sake of his own future. Luke decides to turn to the handmaids for the truth. They confirmed that it was they who spread the rumors about Claudius. The maids said they didn't want to do it, but they had to somehow survive on the estate. Everyone said the same thing, and Nayla really was the real villain. To some extent, Luke had sensed before that things weren't so simple with her. At the same time, he still did not believe Claudia's words that Nayla was to blame for their mother's death. He suddenly remembers how, as a child, she came to visit her sick mother. The woman, seeing Nayla in front of her, began to scream in fear. Luke's eyes widen in surprise as he remembers this. Before this, he was absolutely sure that this was the work of Claudia. But now he began to be tormented by doubts. The servants whisper anxiously about what happened, fearing that their empire will lose. They suddenly mention that Nathan is still not here. Although he should have arrived by now, Claudia understood that if the guy could use the moment and change the course of events, then the title of Crown Prince would be his. Unfortunately, in his current state, he simply could not go to war. The girl decides that she needs to act on her own and perform a feat that will surpass Regis's deeds, which was also the only chance to prove the power of the spirits. She knew Nathan would be against it, but she had to speak her mind. When she enters her husband's room, she sees him lying exhausted on the floor. Claudia puts him to bed and realizes that he is not just sick. It was clear that the boy was struggling to overcome his curse. The girl understood why he was hiding it, because if it became known that he could not touch women, the whole country would revolt. The curse on the royal family came from spirits, so the key to breaking it lies with them. Claudia realizes that in order to return to her world and free Nathan from pain, she must find all the spirits as quickly as possible. It begins to dawn, and the girl realizes that it is time for her to go. She approaches the guy one last time and apologizes for having to leave like this. The spirit inside Nathan notices that, unlike other members of the royal family, his new victim is quite resilient. He was disappointed that he had to wait 10 years to be locked up again. The spirit understands that he can no longer wait like this. Suddenly, he hears Claudia's quiet voice. The creature manages to understand everything she said while standing by his bed. He suddenly joyfully decides that his friend, Stella, has come to see him. The butler is happy that Nayla has finally gone to the academy. He expresses his hope that the girl will quickly adapt there. The Duke begins to doubt whether this was really the right choice. The butler suddenly puts a letter on the table and declares that it was written by the Emperor. After some time, Rubelos calls his own daughter to him and says that His Majesty ordered him to stop the girl if she tries to do something reckless. He says that she probably planned to act with the family knights. The Duke notes that if she disobeys, she will go against the will of the Emperor himself. The man asks if His Majesty will be pleased, even if she succeeds. Claudia reports that the Emperor is a magnanimous man who even forgave the Principality of Espiar, which rebelled against him. She notes that he knows the taste of defeat better than anyone, so she is confident that if he wins, he will be forgiven. The Duke suddenly asks what about Nayla. He reminds her that her sister went to the Imperial Academy right before her arrival, and now she will receive the best education in the Empire and live in peace. Unlike Nayla, the Duke's other daughter is heading to the battlefield. He reports that the girl has no idea what war is, telling her about people suffering from lack of water and the smell of rotting corpses filling the air. He was worried that his beloved daughter was going to go to such hell. Claudia thought she was doing the right thing, but it became much harder. She gets up from her chair and suddenly hugs her father. The girl says that she understands perfectly well that he is trying to take care of her. She reminds that she is the daughter of the greatest hero of the Empire. Claudia wonders if he can ever believe in her. The Duke, sighing heavily, asks who else can believe in her if not him, thereby giving his consent. He suddenly puts forward the only condition that Luke goes with her. Rubelos reports that the boy has already agreed, which actually surprises the man a lot. As Luke approached his father, he stated his desire to go with his sister. He explained this by saying that for many years, he had mistakenly perceived Claudia and believed only Neela's words. The guy realized that he was wrong in his beliefs. He said he wanted to play the role of an older brother at least once. The Duke says he fully understands his daughter's feelings. He takes out a box with necklaces and asks the girl to look at them. The man reports that the jewelry was left by his deceased mother to her own children. Clavdia takes one of them in her hand and reads the inscription on the back. It was written there that a tree standing alone is vulnerable to even the slightest wind, and only those trees whose roots are intertwined can withstand a strong storm. The Duke reports that their relationship is unlikely to improve very soon due to misunderstandings and conflicts over a long period of time. He asked to give the guy at least one chance for the sake of their mother. The girl saw in the game's illustrations good moments that happened before Nayla arrived. They were from the original story, but she didn't know Claudia's past in that story. Luke suddenly enters the room, noticing that his sister was already waiting for him at the meeting place. He says that he wanted to meet before leaving. That's why he invited her. Claudia suddenly asks if he remembers their childhood. She asks what it was like, explaining that she doesn't remember anything anymore, because it was a long time ago. Luke notes that this is a rather unexpected question. He says their relationship was a little more intense than that of ordinary siblings. The guy says that she had very poor health as a child, so he took care of her, and she always treated him very well. Tears suddenly start rolling down Claudia's face, and she asks why he was so cruel. She recalls how he avoided communicating with her and didn't even want to be in the same room. The girl wonders why he only paid attention to Nayla. Luke suddenly gets down on his knees and asks her for forgiveness. He says that although it may sound like an excuse, at the time he really thought Nayla was right. The guy apologizes and remarks that he was very stupid. Suddenly, one of the decorations appears in front of him. Claudia explains that this is a memory left to them by their deceased mother. She says that she doesn't forgive him, but if he wants to go with her, she won't stop him. Luke reads the inscription on the necklace and presses the jewelry to his heart. Nathan wakes up and thinks that he saw his wife. He notices a letter next to him and immediately starts reading it. The guy wonders with concern how it was possible to go to battle, even with spirits. He comes out of his room and is immediately met by servants. The prince suddenly hears a familiar voice asking for his treasure to be returned. In addition, a bright light suddenly spreads throughout the palace. The emperor runs into the room, asking his son if he's okay. He notices how much disorder there is in the room. His Majesty says that trouble has definitely come from the direction of SPR, which he did not expect. Nathan suddenly asks where his wife is. The emperor announces that this girl is no longer a princess. He says that while the boy was struggling with the disease, Regis went to the front and found himself in a difficult situation, and Claudia, having learned about this, immediately left the palace. The man adds that she probably hopes to gain merit through the power of spirits, but she dared to disobey the emperor's order. He says that now she can't be a princess. The prince suddenly asks to prepare an army. Nathan reminds that his father himself said that Regis was in danger, so he, as the older brother, should go after his brother and help. Claudia looks out the window and wonders if it's right to give Luke a second chance. Elliot suddenly comes to her and asks what she is thinking about. He asks if she is worried about the upcoming trip, to which the girl answers positively. Claudia wonders if the spirit of fire will obey her. Elliot reminds him that they haven't even signed a formal contract, and he also hates people. He says that for some unknown reason, he suddenly began to treat them badly, although this had never happened before. The water spirit asks if she is going to ask him the question in person. He says that in that case, she should be careful. Elliot reports that the closer you get to the fire spirit's territory, the more likely you are to accidentally stumble upon him. Claudia, already sitting in the carriage, thinks that those who previously ignored her as an aristocrat now cannot even utter a peep when she shows strength of spirit. Also, those who did not ignore, but spread rumors and the like, also stopped immediately. When they set up camp, the soldiers happily note that they can collect fresh water without limit. Claudia, who arranged all the comforts for them thanks to Elliot, says it's not that difficult. Luke notes that his sister turns out to be even better than he thought. The girl suddenly notices a new problem that has arisen. Other soldiers were unable to light a fire because the wood was wet. She decides to try something new despite the fear and risk. The girl addresses something into the void, asking if the stranger is nearby. The spirit of fire suddenly appears before her, hearing her call. The soldiers scatter in different directions as soon as they see the creature in front of them. The spirit of fire wonders why she called him. She says that she needs to make a fire, but the wood is too damp to burn. The girl asks if he could help her. The fire spirit wonders if she really called him just for this reason. Luke calls out his sister's name in alarm, warning of danger. Claudia had assumed that the creature's reaction would be like this, but if she missed the moment now, the spirit would become even more disobedient. She suddenly says sternly that this is the counterparty's request. The spirit lights a fire and says that he never refused. He asks if she has any other requests for him. The girl understands that she needs to find a way to conclude an official contract as soon as possible. She remembers a conversation with Elliot about how at one point the spirit of fire began to hate people. She wondered what had affected him so much, because this knowledge could be the key to solving the problem. Claudia suddenly hears her brother's voice from the window, talking about some kind of trouble. She immediately asks what happened. The guy says they need to cross the river to Cada County to rebuild the army, but there is no bridge there. Standing in front of a body of water, she uses Elliot's power and the water parts to the sides, forming a path along the very bottom. The girl asks them to move faster because time is limited. The soldier, discussing Claudia with his comrade, notes that his nieces would be shocked if they saw this. The second one notes that they shouldn't relax. Claudia, lying on the bed, realizes how much her body hurts. In recent days, she has been too active and has often used her spirit power. Suddenly, she hears shouts asking for water. The girl immediately runs out to find out what happened. As it turned out, a fire had started. Claudia immediately rushed to help, calling for Elliot along the way. The water spirit tells her that if she continues to use her abilities, she will not be able to withstand it. She says she can't just sit and watch from afar. After some time, Claudia suddenly wakes up in fear. She asks Luke, who is sitting next to her, what happened? And he tells her that she put out the fire. The guy asks if she even knows how scared he was. He says that as soon as the fire started, he fell down in terror. The girl suddenly pushes him out of her tent and tells him that she is okay now, so he should go. She was irritated by the way he pretended to be a caring brother. Suddenly, Elliot appears and remarks that this is amazing. He says that strength of spirit requires the energy of the counterparty. The creature reports that yesterday, due to her condition, she clearly could not use her powers, but she still managed to do so. He asks how the girl is doing now, and she says that she feels great. Suddenly, the spirit of fire joins them and asks what they are talking about. He assumes that we are talking about yesterday's fire. The creature notes that lighting a fire by such a madman simply could not end well. Claudia asks if it turns out that he knew what it all turned out to be, but stayed away, to which he receives confirmation. She says that he only thinks about himself. The girl notes that the one who should be the hottest ends up being the coldest. The spirit of fire suddenly says that people are shameless creatures. He says that he was going to wait for the moment when they would sacrifice someone. But this was only useless sympathy for those who do not know gratitude. The creature suddenly says that she can consider that there was no contract between them. After this, he evaporates, breaking their temporary deal. Elliot notes that the girl was hasty in her reasoning. He says that the fire spread to the mountain, and the one who left was the one who prevented the fire. Claudia refuses to believe what she heard, but the water spirit tells her that it is true. He notes that his friend really does have a difficult character. The fire spirit decides that he only joined them out of boredom, so he had no hopes in the first place. Elliot is adamant that he doesn't want to do this. He explains that he has no reason to talk to the spirit of fire. The creature reminds that he himself told him not to come again. Claudia suddenly changes her plan and asks a spirit standing nearby for help. The spirit of fire hears footsteps nearby and sees a familiar girl in front of him. He wonders why she came to him again. Claudia says that Elliot is not with her, and she asked him not to follow her. She says that she came to apologize because she learned that he took part in extinguishing the fire. The spirit of fire asks if this is a contract. He says he is willing to give her another chance if she can show him her sincerity in her apology. The creature informs her that otherwise, he will make her the unhappiest person in the world. Claudia apologizes for being careless in her statements. She wonders if she can become the sacrifice he demanded as payment for the contract. Suddenly, flames appear around him, and he says menacingly that now is not the time for strange jokes. He asks if she even understands what it means to be a victim of the contract. The spirit of fire says that he saw sincerity and is now ready to turn it into ashes. He begins to threaten her with her own death. Despite this, the girl approaches the creature closely. He asks if she really wants to die, and she says it's okay. Claudia reports that she is not hot at all. She touches it and notices that she is fine, even though she is burning. The girl suddenly asks if he really hates people. She admits that she was able to see his past thanks to Elliot. The last command of the person dear to the spirit was that he should not extinguish the fire surrounding her. He begged Helena to stop. The spirit asked why she was going to such lengths if she could die. The woman said that because of this ability, her entire family burned down, so there was no point in her living anymore. She assumed that everything would have been different if she had never signed a contract with him. The spirit of fire begged her to cancel her order and allow him to put out the fire. The creature wonders what has changed since Claudia learned about his past. He asks if she has decided to take pity on him, increasing the flame. Already completely covered in burns, the girl says that this is not true. She apologizes for judging him without understanding the whole situation. The girl realized that even after she learned about his past, she could not change anything. Claudia says that it must have been very difficult for him. She says it definitely wasn't his fault. Falling helplessly to the ground, She asks the spirit not to blame herself for what happened. The creature suddenly notices that the girl no longer says anything, which seriously frightens him. He calls out her name in concern, but receives no response. The spirit of fire immediately runs to Elliot, asking him to appear immediately. He, holding the exhausted Clavdia in his arms, asks if his friend really told the girl about his past. The creature gives the person to the one standing opposite, and notes that because of this, the mistress of the spirit of water itself almost died. Elliot says he doesn't see any problems. When Clavdia is already peacefully lying in bed, the spirit of water asks his acquaintance if he burned everything because he could not stop thinking about the previous contractor, whom he did not want to see, to which he does not receive any answer. The spirit of fire is surprised that the girl looks healthy, although her skin should have melted by now. Elliot suddenly asks him why he came here after what happened. He asks if he knows why he made a contract with Claudia. The creature admits that he was simply curious. He says that the girl came from another world. Besides that, Elliot says that she came here to become a contractor. He reminds that Claudia is okay now, even though her body should have burned. The creature reports that she is very different from ordinary people. He says that the girl also has a big difference with the previous counterparty, which left an unhealed wound on the spirit of fire. After some time, Claudia wakes up from the incessant arguments. Nearby creatures immediately notice that she has finally woken up. The spirit of fire offered her a contract, and she gave him a new name, Trid. After she found out about his past, all she could think about was how to apologize. In the end, she made a bet based solely on stories. In the end, everything worked out well, and she became the official owner of 2 spirits. The girl looks nervously at how those standing nearby are continuously arguing with each other. The head of the family, Cade, says that if they need anything, they should let him know about it. Claudia says that first she needs a room. After a while, she happily walks down the hallway, trying to remember the last time she took a bath. Luke suddenly calls her and asks her to come to him. He notes that it looks like they won't have time to talk alone. The guy points to a girl standing nearby and says that she will now ride with them. She bows and asks to address her as matey. Claudia indignantly asks why they would take such a small thing, and Luke says that he was told she was 19. She asks the girl if she really is that age, to which she receives confirmation. The girl asks if she has permission from her parents, and the one standing next to her again gives a positive answer. Clavdia suddenly says that she doesn't believe it, so she'll go and ask herself. Maddie immediately tries to stop her from leaving. The girl asks the child to tell the truth about her age. She admits that she is actually 13, and she does not need permission because she is already old enough. Claudia says she can't take a minor with her to the battlefield. She asks her brother if he agrees with her, and he confirms her words. As the girl is about to leave, Maddie catches up with her and asks where she got the hair tie. The child says that this is her thing, and that you can't just use someone else's. The girl says that if they allow her to go with them, she will forget about what happened. Clavdia understands that it is time to move to extreme measures. After some time, Maddie asks for forgiveness for what happened, while tears of resentment well up in her eyes. Her parents also apologize, and the situation is eventually resolved peacefully. Some time passes, and their army moves on. In the county, Claudia planned to recuperate, but the rush meant that she was unable to rest properly. She leans against the nearest blanket, hoping to get some sleep along the way. Suddenly, the girl screams, and Luke immediately looks through her window, trying to find out what happened. Maddie appears in front of them, hiding under the blanket all this time. Luke says that even though she's a child, she still needs to be aware of what she's getting into. The girl begs her elders to take her with them, saying that she studied healing skills specifically for such an occasion. She suddenly starts rolling on the ground and begging to be left. Claudia understood that in order to get Maddie back, they would need to send security with her, but they didn't have enough people, nor did they have enough time. The girl says that they will have to take the child with them. She adds that she needs to learn to take responsibility for her decisions. Maddie, sitting in the carriage, asks with displeasure why she can't ride too. Claudia asks the girl to behave calmly. Suddenly, someone's arrow flies into the nearest tree. One of the soldiers reports that the enemy is about 100 meters ahead. The daughter of Duke Rubelos immediately rushes to their new ally. She asks the girl to stay in the carriage until the last moment, until she personally tells her that everything is okay. Maddie shouts after her that she could help, but no one listens to her anymore. The girl leans too far and suddenly falls to the ground. Suddenly, someone else's arrow hits her next to her. She raises her head, and suddenly, one of the soldiers dies right before her eyes. Nayla looks with admiration at the place of her further education, the Elven Academy. Her guide Alice, standing nearby, asks the girl if she likes this place, to which she receives a positive answer. The woman says that their designer deserves credit for this. Alice notes that the girl has excellent taste, because this academy is known for its magnificent landscape. Nayla suddenly notices something strange. She felt like her guide was mocking her as she looked at the place. She starts muttering under her breath about how she will soon become empress. Suddenly, Nayla tells the woman to shut up and just show her the way. She turns around and notices some girls nearby who are whispering about something. Nayla immediately approaches them, wanting to show who is the boss here. She asks if they wanted to say something if they kept looking at her. One of the students reports that, as far as she knows, the second prince proposed to her. Nayla suddenly asks her to work on her conversation. She says that the only heir recognized by the emperor is Regis, so he is not just a prince, but an heir. The student reports in surprise that the emperor recently announced that one of the two princes who makes the greater contribution to the war will become the heir to the throne. The second adds that Claudia herself went to the front, which impresses her very much. The girls are very surprised that, as it turns out, Nayla did not know about this latest news. They also note that the situation at the front is dangerous, which is why Claudia went there to save the situation with the help of the spirits. Nayla clutches her head and mentally curses Regis for not reporting anything to her. The next day, the director asks how Neela is adapting, and Alice reports that she suddenly fell ill and returned to her homeland. The guide says that, as she was told, she can only get the necessary treatment from her doctor, so the local hospital is not suitable. The director asks his interlocutor with interest what her impression is of the future empress. Alice reveals that she hid her status and showed the academy as a guide. Soon, according to her, the girl showed her true face. The director praises the one sitting opposite and reminds her that their academy is not just an educational institution, and they carefully monitor the behavior of the children of the highest nobility, and if necessary, report this to the imperial family. Nayla approaches a lonely house that is painfully familiar to her. As she walks inside, she calls out to her older brother, Jared. As he walks down the stairs, the guy notices that it is a great rarity to see such distinguished guests in such a modest place. Nayla notes that they haven't seen each other for quite some time. Jared says this is the first time she has returned home since she went to the Duke instead of Lilia. He says that she could come at least once. The guy angrily says that when Lilia died, although she could have been saved if she had received treatment, and when her parents could not bear the grief and left for her, his sister did not even show her nose. Nayla apologizes and says that she was just afraid that he would hate her for what she did. Jared mockingly reminds her how she herself said that they were interfering with her life, and also threatened that if he contacted her again, she would do something terrible. He asks how she can justify herself now if she directly asked him to disappear from her life. Nayla says she just wanted to get out of that hole. She says that she always gave in to Lilia only because she was sick, but she couldn't let her take that place. Jared notes that if Lilia had gotten to the Duke, she could have received treatment and survived, after which he begins to kick Nayla out. The girl suddenly says that she suffered no less because of the villain Claudia. She reports that all the rumors about her are true, and her sister's bullying has crossed all boundaries. Nayla says that she endured all this horror and considered it her karma. She falls to her knees and tells how much she dreamed of becoming empress. The girl says that this dream was the only support in her life, and she left her beloved family to come there. Nayla says that only after she ascends the throne will she be able to apologize to Lilia. She begins to beg her bewildered brother for help. The girl says that he will only need to do what she says. She reminds that the guy is her only family. Breaking the silence, suddenly cries of joy are heard, signifying victory. The soldier says he has a good feeling, because they won quite easily. He reports to Claudia that her brother has led an elite squad to escort the second prince. The girl heads towards the carriage and notices how much stronger she has become. She tells Maddie that she can go out. Claudia looks inside the carriage and notices that the child is not there at all. Regis, looking at the bloody corpses, wonders if this is really the end. Luke suddenly runs up to him, rushing to help. The prince suddenly throws himself into the arms of the new arrival and asks if they have brought reinforcements. Luke happily tells that they killed all the enemies with the help of his sister, which pleases Regis, because he thinks that they are talking about his wife, but is soon disappointed when he learns that his interlocutor meant Claudia. After a while, they return to the carriage. Claudia immediately rushes to her brother. Luke happily reports that His Highness is safe. The girl bows and says that she is glad to see him whole. Regis tells her not to get cocky, starting to brag while Claudia reports to her brother that Maddie is missing. The prince becomes gloomy when he realizes that no one is listening to him. Suddenly, a soldier reports that a letter has arrived from the Principality of Espiar. He tells that it says that they captured Maddie. The girl, cursing, asks those standing nearby to let her out. The guy tells the kid to shut up before he slits her throat. The man asks if it turns out that they escaped only because of one reinforcement. The soldier says that there was a sorceress who controlled water and fire, and she was so powerful that she terrified everyone. Duke Espiara angrily asks if one sorceress really managed to defeat them. The guy reports that they have captured a captive from a noble family, which may later play a role in negotiations. He says that something else happened besides this. The soldier reports that an Imperial has arrived to see the Duke and points to a shaking Jared sitting on his knees. The Duke reads a letter delivered to him, which tells him that command of the enemy forces has passed from the hands of the second Prince Regis to 2 children of Rubellos. It also said that one of the children, his daughter, could control spirits, which was secret information that only close relatives knew. Jared says the letter was sent by Nayla, the second prince's fiancée. The Duke is very surprised that the girl who will soon become the prince's wife is passing on such secret information to the enemy commander-in-chief. The guy says that Nayla is the Duke's adopted daughter, and she suffered cruel abuse from Claudia, so he wants to eliminate her. The Duke was reluctant to get involved in the sisters' feud, but he knew it was bound to be something very interesting. He says that first we need to check the authenticity of the letter delivered to him. The man says that he is going to make Claudia his prisoner, and through her, they will find out whether this is true or not. Duke Rubello's daughter reveals that she had Elliot conduct reconnaissance on the duchy's side, and he reported suspicious activity on the coast. She adds that the large ship is constantly being loaded with some kind of cargo, after which she offers to check it out. But her brother says that it is too dangerous. Luke says that he will go ahead, and if they move with a small detachment of experienced knights, then everything will be fine. Clavdia could trust her brother, but she couldn't imagine what would happen in the camp if he left. Regis indignantly says that even if they were given some powers, they should not have called a meeting without his consent. Because he is a prince, he orders that everything be reported to him in advance. After a while, Claudia angrily tugs at her pillow, not understanding how the second prince could be afraid of her if she slept with him, risking her life. Suddenly, she hears a voice calling him outside. Regis meets her and tells her that a proposal was just accepted at an emergency meeting. He asks the girl to sacrifice her ring for the sake of the Empire. The prince announces that he will use the power of spirits to suddenly attack the enemy. Claudia rolled her eyes, unsure if he was really going to take all her achievements away with a snap of his finger. She says she has no authority to dispose of the ring. The girl says that in order to use the power, one must be chosen by the spirits, and they recognized her as the only bearer. Suddenly, she is surrounded by soldiers, and Regis says that in this case, she will have to be arrested for disobeying the orders of the commander-in-chief. He again tells her to give up the jewelry, threatening to use force. She hands him the ring, and the prince immediately reaches out to take it. As soon as he touches the ring, his hand catches fire. He starts screaming for help, demanding that they bring him water. Suddenly, a whole column of water pours out on him. Spirits appear in front of the guy, and Trid menacingly informs him that only Clavdia can control them. He says that if he does something like that again, he will feel such a flame that even hell will seem better to him. Regis runs away and tells the girl that she should not rely on this power. Elliot tells her to call them if anything happens. Claudia thinks about how tired she is of the second prince, realizing that if Nathan were with them, he would not behave like this. She wondered where her husband was now, and she really hoped that he was okay. The first prince asks irritably if they said they would arrive by nightfall, noticing that the soldiers are about to take another break. The knight reports that there may be deviations depending on the weather and the condition of the soldiers. The spirit thinks irritably that if he had wielded a sword well, he would have cut the guy down with one blow. He takes the weapon in his hands and notices that he now feels much more confident. In the sword's reflection, he notices Nathan and notes that he woke up earlier than expected. The imprisoned man asks for the return of his body, but the spirit tells him that this will definitely not happen until he meets their wife. Nathan says that in that case, he will have to throw him out by force. Suddenly, a sword pierces his body. The spirit angrily asks what he is doing. The boy falls to his knee, and a soldier runs up to him, asking if everything is okay. Nathan, having managed to get his body back, asks where he is, and is told that they are at the border. When asked where Claudia is, the knight says that she is at the front, and they head towards her. Nathan asks him to report everything that is known about his situation and the situation of his wife. The soldier says that the Duke offered Claudia a deal. The girl understood that exchanging her, the imperial daughter, for the simple Countess Madi was simply an absurd proposal. The knight also says that Regis said that if Claudia agrees to the enemy's offer, he will respect her decision. The girl realizes that this proposal sounds too ridiculous. She was well aware that this could be a trap. Despite this, if they agreed to the exchange, they would be able to easily get closer to the Duke himself. Claudia thinks that the enemy is unaware of her spirits, and she will have the opportunity to extract information from him in order to subsequently find the key to ending the war and peacefully negotiate a truce. If this were impossible, they would take only the information that would help them in the fight and then return back. Luke's absence gave Regis even more opportunities to bully, but in the end, it was only to his advantage. Claudia suddenly says that she is ready to sacrifice herself for the well-being of the Cade family. After some time, Regis reminds her that it is entirely her choice. The girl was scared, because she herself decided to go straight into the enemy's lair, but she believed in her abilities. She decides that if she is careful and doesn't make mistakes, then everything will be fine. The Duke finally sees before him the one Nayla wrote about, the girl who found an enemy in the person of her younger sister, and was the daughter of the very Duke who killed his father. He wondered how much she resembled her parent. The man orders that as soon as the enemy starts to act, they send hostages for exchange. Claudia crosses paths with a crying captive who is finally being returned. Mari asks the girl for forgiveness. She says she just wanted to help those suffering from the war in their lands. Clavdia says that if she wants to help someone, she needs to understand what she can do and what she can't. She says that she personally is too weak to take up a sword, but she can control spirits. The girl says that if she couldn't do this, she wouldn't have given up and would have looked for other ways. She asks the girl to start by studying hard and gaining her own experience. Claudia ends her story by saying that when she is ready, it will not be too late to perform again. She says goodbye to Mady, and they go their separate ways. The girl was glad that everything was okay with the captive. The Duke, standing in front of her, asks her to get off her horse and stand in front of him. She follows the order and then raises her head. The Duke is very surprised when he sees the face of the man standing opposite him. Regis happily says that he feels as if he has been cured of his illness. The only thing he regretted was that he failed to take the spirit ring. Suddenly, a soldier runs up to him and tries to tell him something important. Nathan appears out of nowhere and asks why his wife, who went to help his brother, is nowhere to be seen. Although he turned out to be alive and well, Regis steps back and tries to think of something to say. He decides that everything is fine, and he just needs to say everything the way they agreed. The guy says that the Countess was captured by enemies, and the Duke offered to exchange her for Claudia, to which she agreed. Nathan asks if this means his wife is being held captive by the Duke, to which he receives confirmation. Suddenly, Regis is hit with a powerful blow, sending him flying to the side. The first prince asks the soldier to get ready, reporting that they are heading north immediately. His brother indignantly asks how he could decide to do such a thing so quickly. Nathan says he needs to get Claudia back. Regis wonders how he can get her from behind enemy lines. The elder reminds that they have a prepared plan for such situations. He reports that what they talked about was probably true.